The next day, Khan and the group decided to depart in different directions and take a city tour around Alfheim. The main purpose was to learn everything useful that they needed to know to perfectly mix with the populace and understand how everyone behaved or conducted themselves in their day-to-day life. Khan wasn't oblivious to the fact that what could seem outrageous or immoral to you could just be a normal code of conduct in different cultures or civilizations. And being ignorant about such details would just leave a lot of plot holes in their storyline. And while taking notes of locations of monasteries, historically important places, authorities, and the overall layout of the city that spanned 150 kilometers in perimeter alone, Khan came to know about one odd thing: slavery. Yes, the Elven Empire legally allowed slavery. However, it was not like selling people and the owner gets to do whatever the hell they want with them. Here, the slavery system worked differently. The condition was applied only in terms of either crimes or economical fraud or bankruptcy. Zivet Empire allowed one to use themselves, their spouse, and even their children in monetary dealings as a form of collateral. However, the High Elves weren't idiots. Each party involved must voluntarily agree to these terms. Children also have age requirements based on their species and are not allowed to serve or abuse that. If one party failed to pay the other and had this sort of agreement, then the former as well as their partner would be sold as slaves to the latter if they were part of the agreement. The imperial laws would facilitate such pacts in a process of what they called moral repayment. Under these rules, no party was to harm each other and the slaves would be forced to perform manual labor for their masters. A predetermined price of monthly wages would be set by the authorities and the slave would work until the original amount under the contract is repaid no matter how many years it took. But the said master also had the responsibility to provide for food and housing for the slaves, and they could not intentionally cause trouble for the slaves. The Elven laws did not allow the low quality of housing or rations for the slaves either. However, this wasn't the same case for criminals. They were subjected to a whole different level of treatment that had harsh living conditions, unfair treatment, and no help from authorities even if the master starved them for days. For someone from the earth, it would appear immoral and too extreme. But in the Zivet Empire, it was the most effective way to live up to one's moral obligation and pay back what you owed. This also played a big part in their culture as it prevented people from committing crimes and running away with someone's money. If one couldn't afford the consequences, they shouldn't make such exchanges and contracts either. And since the master had to provide for the housing and meals of the slaves, it was already an expensive alternative, so very few opted out for this method. But the rich among the masses had no problems with this arrangement, so many upper-class people often made such agreements. Compared to the form of illegal slavery Khan had seen in Rocco's and Vulcan Empire, this system seemed more like forced employment. Inside the suite Khan and the subordinates booked, a war table was arranged and all the members were discussing and reporting all the information they collected and what they needed to pay attention to solidify their future in Alfheim. There are only two ways for us to do what we're good at while avoiding unnecessary attention. One is joining the Adventurers Association or a mercenary guild, said Ronan, who had gathered the most information. Dungeon hunting is our forte. That's how Master created all of you in the first place. And given our ranks and abilities, it shouldn't be a problem for us to gain a lot of resources either, since there are hundreds of dungeons spread across this region of the Empire. It's a win-win situation for us, spoke and proposed Omega. Just then, Rathnar decided to meddle. You kids are forgetting something. To form these large numbers of dungeons in the 300 kilometers so easily, just imagine how strong the source of the mana and world energy would be. Don't you think that's something worth investigating? His question indeed alerted all of them. You're right. Even your core hidden close to Flavit City had created over a dozen dungeons, spoke Khan as a realization struck him. And my core was sealed by Lesrin Michelson, a 9th stage saint. It was hidden for 800 years, and once the protective formation dwindled due to the passage of time, it created those dungeons within a century. So think how big and terrifyingly vast the source for all these dungeons must be. What kind of being had something so powerful that could even create 20 times more dungeons than a peak saint's core? Hypothesized Rathnar. Holy shit, you're right. There must be a big secret behind it all. Otherwise, these many dungeons should be impossible to form in a single saturated region. spoke Khan because this seemed like the only possibility to him. But you know what? Let's not dig into the matters that could create trouble for us. Let's not visit these dungeons at all, declared Khan. Staying out of trouble was exactly what they wanted right now, and they had enough resources to sustain themselves for another year. So making hasty decisions would be simply foolish. Then we must discard these fake adventurer IDs as well. Besides, there won't be any dungeon good enough for us to gain any useful abilities or fight powerful enemies at all, since our group is enough to kill even a 5th stage saint at this point if we work together, iterated Khan with a solemn voice. That's it then. We all should join a mercenary guild, spoke Cyril with an elated tone. I'll do you one better. Why don't we create a mercenary guild of our own? Asked Khan with a smile. Soon, he discussed the merits of choosing this route, and all of them came to a unified consensus. As for the mercenary guild, I have a fitting name, said Khan, and decided to embark on a different journey this time. Misthios. Khan decided on the name Misthios as their soon-to-be-founded mercenary guild. As for why did he choose to form a new guild instead of joining already existing ones in Alfheim? Being a mercenary, the risk of their identities getting revealed would far be less, and they could choose whatever type of job they want. From finding herbs in forests like a beginner RPG game to killing an army of monsters, the mercenary trade could do whatever their clients demanded. Also, this trade had much more money and fewer restrictions than adventurers' associations that kept tabs on you and had means to know your whereabouts in the name of offering protection and following the rules of the institution. Just like the mobile phones on the Earth, the Adventurer Association's IDs were like tracking devices and chips that could be used to find you by law enforcement and authorities. Besides, working under rules and regulations while being monitored by someone from a position of authority was simply beneath them at this point, even if they had to lay low. Khan never liked to keep looking around his shoulder while doing things that would work in his favor. And during his short time in Flavit City where he was an adventurer, Khan had no intentions to return to those rookie days. He was simply too powerful and experienced to go through the same cycle again. Although they would have to create a reputation for themselves first to make it big in this profession, and could even make a few enemies in the name of competitors, Khan and his group had never been the kind to abide by the rules. Whether it was Rocco's Empire, where Khan and the gang screwed over the 3 noble factions who governed for over a century, or Vulcan Empire, where they massacred the Heroes Party and thwarted the Church's coup. Besides, Khan didn't plan to implicate anyone innocent in his affairs this time, and neither did he want to be responsible for the lives of millions of people again, as he did in Verlassen. Given how a group of powerful entities that even someone like Javi could not defeat were after him, Khan wanted to be as secretive as he could. As long as one paid them good as mercenaries, they'd even go as far as taking out someone in power. Khan and Ronan alone had perfect skills for assassinations that couldn't be tracked in any way. Thus, being mercenaries was more lucrative and well-suited for their situation. After a few hours of running through their plans, Khan made another declaration. All of you also need to change your appearances and names before we create our new fake identities and create the guild. Soon, all of them started changing their appearance, since Khan had already imparted the mythical rank Metamorphosis bloodline to all of them long ago. However, what happened was that none of them could remove the distinctive features that came from their original appearance. For example, Omega still had the black right arm and silver hair, while Blackwell still couldn't get rid of his 2 brown ox-like horns from his head. Although Ronan managed to remove the inbuilt mask on his face, his eyes still remained green. Only Oliver somehow managed to remove his wings and eagle-like head, but even he couldn't hide his beak and hawk-like eyes. Armin couldn't erase the archaic vein-like green tattoos on his forehead and body, while Cyril could only change his hair color to white. What's happening? Wondered Khan. The system detects that apart from General Cyril, the original bloodlines of subordinates are repelling the Metamorphosis bloodline. Given how strong these bloodlines of the god beasts are compared to the Jatvorim's Metamorphosis bloodline, removing their distinctive features of the base bloodline is not possible, reported the system after thorough analysis. I see. Means no matter what bloodline I give them, they can't just transform into those beings completely, since their own bloodlines would not allow those changes, asked Khan. Yes. The system responded solemnly. Damn it, Well, never mind. Just tweak a few things here and there. Besides, no one knows about your ties to me in Vulcan Empire. So they won't be looking into any of you either, said Khan nonchalantly. In the following moments, Omega's hair shortened by a bit, but overall changes in their appearance didn't differ by much. Oliver and Ronan only changed their hair color, while both Jugram and Blackwell managed to reduce their size to only 2 meters in height instead of their previous 3-meter-tall bodies. But after a while, Khan was left speechless, because whether intentionally or not, everyone except Omega and Blackwell had turned into familiar appearances. This is more fitting. I kind of missed this, said Cyril with a devilish smirk. This is comfortable as well as convenient, said Armin, because at this moment, these subordinates had assumed their old identities as the Sins. The new appearance for everyone else except for Omega and Blackwell resembled their past as the heads of the 7 deadly sins. Even Khan gave up because that's the best they could do after their own bloodlines had evolved and they couldn't just transform completely like Khan. As for Oliver, he did remove the wings and now chose to hide his face behind an archer's mask and hood. Jugram's hair turned bright red, while Cyril's turned white. All right then. Looks like the world doesn't want you to get a completely new appearance. And since you resemble your previous identities, let's go with those names too. It's not like anyone outside of our organization knew your names or identities in Rocco's empire. And even those identities as the Sins were fake, spoke Khan as he gave them a go. So the only thing now remained were the names. Since Khan chose to be an Ironborn and these were his supposed allies who came from the same place as him as per their background cover-up story, he had to think of suitable surnames. Khan then looked at them one by one and named their new personas. From now on to outside people, Omega is Raiden Hradvitsen, Oliver is Icarus Vederfolner, Jugram is Dante Surterson, Blackwell should be called Sigurd Sutunger, Cyril will be Loki Vitkissen, for Ronin it's Scorpion Banamatter, and lastly Armin is named Darwin Grodari. Finished Khan in one go. These were the names of the subordinates based on their identities as heads of 7 deadly sins. Khan just added Nordic surnames for them, using either their species or jobs. None of them were elves, so their names could be from any other culture. This was a well-thought setup. And since they couldn't use their armors made by Throck using the Guardian Dragon's body in public, changing the appearance of the clothes made from the legendary Invimerax skin made by Albestros was their best option. All right then, let's go, commanded Khan, and the boys left like a group of bandits, ready to loot innocent travelers, their next destination being a very important place, the Mercenary Association. Meanwhile, at the center of the Zivit Empire was a 250 kilometers vast city. This rich city filled with ancient elven architecture with the combination of enormous trees, giving it a complexion of white, gold and green, was the biggest settlement, as well as the capital of the elven empire called Eletnal. Whether it was economic hubs, markets, or trading posts, the population here was in tens of millions, while thousands of flat hovercraft like flying ships and ginormous monsters carrying hundreds of people on their backs like people sitting on a roller coaster kept entering the premises through the sky. On the ground, hundreds of pathways and roads built on different levels and leading to desirable locations as per your requirements came into sight. Once you chose a particular route, you will end up reaching your destination without wasting time or getting stuck in traffic via flying vehicles that were like bullet trains, just flying a few meters above the surface of the roads. Compared to Rathna and Arkensen, the technological advancements were akin to a higher upgrade and not a single cloud of smoke or pollution could be seen. This settlement was flourishing in every corner and exit gates, while more than 100 million people were hurrying and going about their lives. And at the very center of capital Eletnal was the residence of the Imperial clan and the High Elves. All their lands collectively spanned 50 kilometers in radius, as the top 1% of the Zivit Empire had their mansions, castles, and garrisons located here. Finally, a 10-kilometer radius property came into sight, filled with dozens of massive and tall towers with 8 palaces on different corners. Among one of those palaces was a particular property where one of the most important individuals in the world lived. A fragrant and soothing scent of orange-colored tea spread across a tea house in a lush garden filled with dozens of varying flowers and trees. the permeating scent from the flowers and the fragrant tea soothing every person sitting on the chairs across a long white marble table. There were totally 13 individuals present, all of them belonging to the elven race. However, only one amongst them had shorter ears than the others, who seemed to be high elves based on their attires and archaic elven tattoos made on their bodies and, in some cases, their face or forehead. Yet all of them displayed the utmost sense of respect towards this individual despite him being a half-breed. On the far end of this table was their host, who invited all these individuals to this little tea party. A golden brown-haired elven girl adorning pristine white and turquoise-colored attire let out a worried expression and asked in a pleasant yet sensual tone, "For some reason, my heart is filled with worries, my lord. I fear that someday, that vile and treacherous hero of darkness who ambushed and killed the hero of fire like a coward would target you as well. I hope such fate may never befall you or any of your friends," said this young woman, who seemed to be around 23 to 24 years of age based on her appearance. "You shan't worry about such matters, your highness. No matter how devious or cunning he may be, coming to our empire would be no different than walking into an unending pit. Only death awaits such sinners," responded another female elf who seemed older than the former. "Still, our information tells us that he has 2 7th-stage saints with him. Lord Abbot said those 2 are from the ancient cult of Darkborn, and they killed the Pope of the Vulcan Empire as well. This is something that shouldn't be looked down upon," she insistently forewarned with a worried expression. "Ha! What can those people do? Even if there are 2 of them, Lord Abbot is alone enough to deal with them since a high elf. Those vile beings cannot be compared to someone like him or your majesty, the Emperor. Coming to our Zivet Empire is akin to begging for their doom," spoke a middle-aged elven swordsman clad in white and purple armor. Just then, the person on the other end of the table spoke. "Princess Eleanor, I understand your worries, but you shouldn't stress yourself over such matters. It's not good for your health. It would worry me more if you're feeling uneasy over such useless affairs and fell ill again," spoke the white-haired half-elf on the other end of the table. This person in gold, blue and white attire for a summoner-class fighter with a radiantly glowing purple staff beside him was none other than the 10th summoned being by the god of life and the current hero of life, Ervelyn Baslark. The summoner-class hero of life had a gaze filled with affection and genuine worry towards the princess of the Zivet Empire named Eleanor. Even those present here could sense their superfluous staring at each other. Both Ervelyn and Eleanor had their gazes transfixed at each other as if they were 2 bodies but one soul. "Cough, cough, arm. If only would someone care about my well-being like that. I'd be happy to embrace death," said an archer-class elf. "You bet. Given how clueless you are on a battlefield, you're likely to die before getting married anyway," scoffed the swordsman elf. "Ah, he's right. Plus, you are already past the age to get married. No lady would want you anyway." A series of laughter resounded in the tea house. "Hey, I'm only 200 years old. There's no need to rush. Plus, I don't wish to get married until I'm at least a 5th-stage saint," rebuked the elven archer clad in golden lightweight armor. The host of this party was the princess of the empire, who was actually 170 years old. But given her species as the high elf, her appearance was that of a teenage girl. As for the rest of the high elves present here, they were the hero's party members. Not a single one of these individuals was below 150 years of age, yet all of them looked like a standard Isekai manga group of youngsters forming a party. The only 2 people who looked like middle-aged men were already past 230 years of age and were the strongest of the group given how they were 5th-stage saints. The most common factor apart from them being high elves was that all of them were the heirs or scions of the Elven King's class of high elves social structure, all of them being loyal only to the imperial family and their respective clans. Among them, Princess Eleanor seemed to be an enchantress-class elf and carried a blue cube clipped to her waistband, similar to how Cassandra carried a yellow orb with her when she fought Khan in the Emperor's Chosen competition. And finally, the man of the hour spoke. "Don't worry, princess. Even if he came looking for me, because of my divine abilities, he will never be able to kill me, and I will find everything there is to know about him in due process," declared the 9th hero of life with a proud expression. Ervelyn was 80 years old in reality, yet his appearance made him look like 20 years old, at least 8 years younger than current Khan. If our fates bring us to face each other one day, I shall show no mercy, spoke Ervelyn with a confident smile. I will hunt and kill him myself. Meanwhile, at the northern end of the Zivet Empire and the southern-western end of the Alfheim was a 5 kilometers wide estate filled with many 10 floors buildings. Each of these places having thousands of people entering and leaving their premises as if bees flocking towards their nest. What the hell? What kind of nonsense is that? I know the rules, all right. Since when did the requirement rose that high? Argued an elf as he sat across a well-dressed wolfkin. Mr. Ragnarsson, I don't know what small town you came from, but those are the rules of the Mercenary Association in Alfheim. You must bring in at least 500 people already registered with our association to form a guild. Otherwise, you can stick to being a small team and live like the bottom feeders. The choice is yours, responded a distinguishable dressed brown-furred wolfkin. His stature was only 5 feet, but given how well-dressed he was and the walking stick with a carving of a wolf's head he carried, one could easily detect that he was someone in the position of authority. Khan was now in the presence of one of the 5 executive assistants of the Alfheim Mercenary Association. The gentleman in front of him was called Logan Varger. This morning, they had come to register as mercenaries after forging few documentation by bribing the honest and forthcoming people in the identification department of the association. But when they came to meet the executive assistant, who was only below the chief operating executive, they were presented with a very hard-to-meet condition. Mercenary Association were the legal authority who facilitated the transaction between clients who needed particular jobs done and the well-trained fighters, aka the mercenaries. These mercenaries were categorized in 3 classes. Mercenary Team, which had less than 20 members. Mercenary Envoy, which had more than 100 members. And finally, the Mercenary Guild, which had more than 500 active members. The main job of the Mercenary Association was to verify and legalize the said groups and their abilities, and then when a particular client was in need of their services, they'd set up a contract between both sides. There were all sorts of jobs such as guarding an envoy, protecting a VIP, or even acting as a small army for skirmishes between powerful clans and nobles. The Mercenary Association was the only place where you could easily get those jobs and make it into a valid agreement acknowledged by the law. And as a legal fee, they'd take a predetermined 5% cut no matter how big or small their payout was. Unlike the Adventurers Associations, the Mercenary Association had very different modus operandi. Here, nobody cared if you lived or died as long as you could finish the work given by the client. Also, unlike the Adventurers Association, they didn't buy material from the adventurers that came from monster hunting or dungeons and sold it in the outside market, or even provide these mercenaries any support in case their guilds and teams were in danger. It's strictly give and take exchange, where the association got their cut for bringing clients and mercenaries under the same roof. Whether you accomplish your deal or you fail, whether you live or die, that is up to your own capability. However, the conditions placed in front of Khan were not favorable. He wanted to quickly set up a guild to make it big and earn enough resources that they'd need after the ones they had were depleted within a year. But the condition for the first 2 classes was that they either joined some already existing mercenary groups and envoys and stayed there for another year as per the rules, or they had have at least 500 members to form a guild to get a shortcut. And all those people must be registered in the Mercenary Association, and nobody can bring in people and start from scratch. Even among those members, at least 100 of these individuals should have been registered with the association for at least 1 year. Stated the Wolfkin in a stern voice, his tone full of authority. These were actually sensible rules. So no random people could just create short-lived and proxy mercenary guilds. But these rules were becoming a hurdle to Khan. Yet Khan didn't give up. The businessman in him actually saw this as an opportunity. Suddenly Khan took out a small chest out of his space ring and placed it on the Wolfkin's desk that was filled with dozens of paperwork blocks. "What the hell is this?" questioned the Wolfkin with an angered tone. "A gift, in good faith," responded Khan. "If you sell it to correct people or even the black market, it will make you a fortune," said Khan and opened the chest. Shimmer, glitter. The Wolfkin's eyes blinked in succession, and after a dozen seconds, He finally managed to glance at the contents of the job. Why are you giving me this?" asked Mr. Logan with his eyes and mouth wide open, because the chest was filled with gold ornaments, rubies, diamonds and jewels of all different kinds and extremely high quality. "You already know how things work here. Your kind is third in the social hierarchy. This position as an executive assistant will probably be as far as your career will go. Given the structure of the organization, you will never reach the top 2 layers of management," iterated Khan as he pushed the chest toward the wolfkin with a benign smile. "But you seem like a person who has ambitions and is trying to make it big," he said, using the psychological method of suggestive assertion. "Following rules of the organization does not mean you can't be rich or exploit the system to your own benefit. I'm sure there's already a lot of corruption within the association where the top brass fill their pockets to do favors to big guilds and bring them top-tier clients. So why shouldn't you make some pocket change as well?" asked Khan with a coy smile. He let out a smug grin and proposed a deal. "Let's hope this is a new beginning of our mutually beneficial friendship." Khan proposed an under-the-table deal to the Brown Wolfkin executive associate of the Mercenary Association named Logan Varger on the spot without any forewarning or talking in roundabout ways. He was not worried about any ramifications of the latter acting out or causing trouble for him. Khan was dealing with a grown and experienced person who had seen the ins and outs of the business and not some noob on the first day of his job who had moral and ethical values. "Point me in the right direction. Make a few recommendations for us in the future, and I will make sure to fill your pockets to the point you can't carry the weight." He spoke nonchalantly. Corruption and favoritism existed in all sorts of companies, organizations, and even the government. So Khan intended to make use of those precedents and set a few things in stone. As for the jewelry and gold, Khan didn't need these. He had enough of these shiny objects to form a mountain. But selling them in bulk or even on the black market would gain too much attention even from the imperial authorities given how these were mostly from Rocco's, an enemy empire. So revealing these to the masses was a big risk to their lives. But using them for a small exchange wasn't going to leave any traces behind because the person next wasn't an idiot who would put it on display to the world either. The Brown Wolfkin on the other end was still trying to grasp the situation given how quickly things happened. He was already under the impression that Khan needed him because he was an Iroborn, the kind of elves who sometimes get looked down on even by normal elves among the same species since they didn't serve and pray under the customs set by the monasteries. As for Khan's offering, the chest filled with gold and jewels was enough to set him up and live a lavish life for a couple of years. But the way Khan casually passed it around, Logan's intuition told him that Khan and the group were some big shots starting anew in Alfheim. Getting in the good books of these people would only be beneficial and won't hurt him as long as he used the laws of the association as a pretense. He already knew how his higher-ups were giving preferential treatment to top clans, exalted nobles and high elves while not even throwing breadcrumbs to them when in reality, he managed the whole department and did all the paperwork as well as shouldering all the responsibilities and consequences. The higher-ups reaped the rewards all these years, yet he got nothing for his hard work only because he was a demi-human and not a human or an elf. This could be my only chance to change my life, he thought to himself as he made an important decision. Logan nodded and then pulled the chest in his own space ring made by elven artificing techniques. Honesty, loyalty, and morality. He had seen how valuable those things were in real life and how they amounted to nothing in their social structure. One was bound to be stuck in a cage made by the powerful as soon as they were born in any other species than elves in this empire. So now that a great opportunity came knocking at his door, he would be a fool to let it go. A few seconds later, Logan took out a red book and gave it to Khan. "Find these people, and you can try your luck there. If things don't go as you want, you never met me," said Logan in a stern voice. Khan nodded in affirmation. Both parties stood up and then shook hands, the latter responding in a pleased tone. "I hope you will have something useful for me ready when I come next time." 1 week later, inside a massive auditorium, more than 700 individuals from species to species and different fighting classes and professions had gathered after being paid a good sum just to attend this meeting. The main common factor being that everyone belonged to small mercenary teams that stood at the bottom of the food chain. After getting the book from Logan Varger, Khan and the group had spent an entire week locating and contacting all these mercenary teams and some envoys and lured them with hefty offerings to attend this meeting. Other than being mercenaries, these groups were ousted by Logan in a separate book because there was another common factor that no one other than him knew. All these groups were about to be disbanded. Not getting enough clients or making way too less money put them in an economic crisis. All these groups were the victims of the wealthy guilds taking away all the juicy meat and not even leaving a few bones behind for these bottom feeders. As for the hosts of this event, all of them were said to be peak grandmasters. Thus, many came to get the free money that was promised after the end of the meeting and also due to curiosity to see the frivolous people who were throwing it away just to make them attend this gathering and witness what all this fuss was about. 7 peak grandmasters stood on the stage while all these invitees were calmly seated, waiting for the main event to begin. Omega stood at the center and announced their new names to all the people present as part of the introduction. And finally, step, Khan in his Legolas Ragnarsson appearance walked on the stage as Omega and all the generals bowed in respect, giving everyone a hint that the main boss had arrived. Welcome everyone. Thank you for receiving our invitation. Before I begin, let me assure you all that whether you like what we have to say or not, you will still receive the money. He started off the bat with the main thing everyone came from. Ha, that's more like it. Finish this chatter quickly then, spoke a tank-class orc warrior. Others also laughed and chanted the same thing. All right, I won't beat around the bush, spoke Khan and continued in an elegant yet domineering manner. I present you all a life-changing opportunity. Khan brazenly announced his intentions of wanting all these people to join the new mercenary guild he was creating. This declaration came out unexpectedly, so all the attendees were taken aback and many didn't believe their ears. Think about it. All your teams are currently struggling to make ends meet and most of you are already planning to disband your groups as soon as the mandatory period expires. Some of you might as well be leaving this profession for good given how bad your luck has been so far, iterated Legolas as his enchanting red eyes gazed around the auditorium. Because you lot do not have any backing and no sources of large funds to keep carrying on, most cannot even get your weapon and armors repaired. Although our work differs compared to the adventurers, fighting people and monsters is unavoidable. The maintenance cost and your own expenses are hard to cover just with a few clients within a month. On top of it, there's no guarantee of life and zero compensation is provided to your families if you die during a job. Compared to adventurers, mercenaries live in a harsher and cutthroat world, explained Khan. His words struck the nerve of everyone present because that was their truthful situation at the present moment. Just then, some of the unhappy people who had the habit of complaining spoke in return. And what? All of our problems will be gone just because we join your guild? So what if all of you are peak grandmasters? There are plenty of mercenary envoys in Alfheim with more than 10 grandmasters. Yet even they don't dare to form a guild. So who are you guys? Can you promise any safety for our future? Why should we join just because you offered us some money to come here? Questioned a human among the crowd who seemed to be a peak master rank mage. Yeah, he's right. There's no profit or job security in it. Nothing has changed anyway, rebuked a violet tigerkin archer. Legolas had already expected this rebuttal. There were always pessimistic people who would refuse any help because of their prior experiences. Some people among the crowd showed their will to join the guild but then started bargaining for advantageous conditions. Most of them being aware that the group standing on the stage needed them more than they needed these grandmasters. Even a lone saint can only form a mercenary envoy at best. So what if you're all peak grandmasters? It won't ensure any great future for us to join your guild, said an elven thief class individual. And once a guild is formed, it cannot be disbanded for the next 6 months as per the rules. What if you fail to provide for all of us with work? We will have to accept only measly jobs and won't be able to feed our families, let alone ourselves, stated a purple Lamia knight with her tone filled with concern. All right then, I should rid you of all of your concerns, said Legolas with a confident smile. The next moment, Loki aka Cyril formed a red patterned isolation barrier and encompassed the entire auditorium. The magic class individuals were quickly shaken to their core because they sensed the quality and rank of the spell instantly. Boom! Boom! Then what about now? Said Khan with a charming and mischievous smirk. Loud noises rang across the hall, and everyone present finally found out the truth about why Legolas was so confident in his claims. In front of all of these people stood 8 saints. All these mercenaries present in the auditorium were already grasping at straws to make a living. And now that there stood 8 saints in front of them, none could believe their eyes. Many people were flabbergasted, and no one dared to speak another word. Just a single person among these 8 saints was strong enough to kill them all with their saint pressure alone. As far as guilds went, normally, even 1 saint was good enough to form a reputable mercenary envoy in Alfheim, while 2 were more than enough to form a reputable mercenary guild. But now there were 8 of them, and Raiden aka Omega also seemed to be a 3rd stage saint himself. This instantly changed their opinion about the proposition made by Legolas. I did my research. There are a total of 43 mercenary guilds in Alfheim, but only 27 of them have a saint as their leader. Only 8 of them have more than 1 saint in the guild. And finally, there are only 3 guilds that have more than 5 saints. Stated Legolas loudly. If we're added to the list and when the firepower is counted, we would be the 2nd strongest guild in Alfheim. He stated in a stern voice. So think about it. Once the news spreads, it won't be us in the need for clients, rather people will come flocking towards us. He said nonchalantly and gave another semblance of hope to these people. Just then, Raiden stepped forward and spoke in a rustic voice. We will take care of the big ones. All of you can deal with small ones within your capabilities. This way, no one has to die while biting more than they can chew due to desperation, and funding won't be an issue for the guild. He spoke while releasing his aura of a peak 3rd stage saint. Another voice then resounded in the hall. And even if you do not participate in the work, we will give you other jobs such as running errands, protecting our assets, providing guard duty. As long as you're doing what's expected of you, everyone will receive small percentage of profits as monthly bonus regardless, which should be enough to feed yourself and your families. Spoke Scorpion, a masked and hooded assassin saint who was actually Ronin. So, who wants to make money without risking your lives? Asked Dante aka Jugram in a stoic voice, sending a chill in their spine. At this moment, Legolas had not only given them a ray of hope during dark times when they were struggling to afford a single meal a day, but also promised them confirmed wages. This lucrative offer was like a godsend opportunity for most who had been living with an obscure vision of their future. So instead of getting pressured or feeling threatened, the majority of the attendees stood out with exhilarated expressions and shouted in unison. Count us in! After the mind-boggling revelation about all of the hosts being saints was revealed to the attendees, most of them quickly agreed to join the guild these powerhouses were forming on the spot. Why? None of them were new to this profession. They already knew the importance of powerful fighters like saints who stood at the pinnacle of strength in the world. Even in the Zivit Empire, there were only 103 saints among the population of 3.2 billion people. However, these monstrous beings rarely joined the mercenary profession, as most used their strength in either military or other fields of the ruling structure to gain prestige and benefits. So a single saint was already rare, but 8 were akin to gods bestowing their blessings without restraint. Also, given their own battle prowess, skills, and ranks all these attendees had, 90% of them wouldn't even qualify to join a guild led by so many saints in the first place. Thus, the majority took upon this offer because no way in hell would they get another opportunity like this. All right. Those who want to join, form a line in your row order. Those who don't, take the promised amount and you may leave. Spoke Legolas. Everyone orderly formed Ks and started signing contracts of employment, and also received the signing bonus. Here, unlike the Rocco's Empire, no one used the blood-binding contracts. Rather, they used the ancient elven method of lifespan contracts. In this method, instead of a body part, one's life force was at stake. The breach of contract by the guilty would reduce their life by the number of years mentioned in the contract. And this varied on the grade of the lifespan contract that had a range of 10 years, 20 years, and 50 years, going from low, high, and supreme rank respectively. This was their version of blood binding and blood oath token. The higher the rank, the more lifespan could be added to the contract. The procedure carried on without any trouble and ended in 3 hours. However, some people still didn't sign. But Legolas and the group were unaffected because he had already expected this outcome. Not all people came with the intention to join in the first place. Some had their own arrangements and means to survive, while others were either going to act like informants and relay the information about the events of this gathering to other envoys and guilds in Alfheim. In a way, this was still a good thing for Legolas and their soon-to-be-established guild to get fame and become popular in the community. As for those who deliberately caused trouble for them, Khan and his group had ruined 2 empires with his actions and interference. What the hell could these pesky little guilds do to those who once ruled over millions of people? And finally, as the evening came, Legolas visited the Mercenary Association. Thud. Legolas dropped a small heap of employment contracts on the desk. So you did manage to do it. I'm impressed, Mr. Ragnarsson. Spoke Logan as he smoked a cigar and offered one to Legolas. And what's the next procedure? There should be a fee to register and stuff, right? Asked the elf on the other side of the desk as he too lit it up and leisurely enjoyed the distinctive scent that packed a punch in both his mouth and mind. Given how you have a total of 634 members, the price would be close to 200,000 purple Idikar. Declared Logan after tallying a few things. Purple Idikar was the highest denomination in the Zivit Empire's currency structure. 1 Idikar being equivalent to $100 on Earth. That much? Just to get certified and legalized in the business? Man, you guys really swindle us poor and needy people. Can I get some discount? Cajoled Legolas shamelessly. There's no room for bargain. This isn't a vegetable market. Besides, there's a problem. Responded the Brown Wolfkin executive associate in a serious voice. I'm listening, said Legolas without any worry. My superiors. 3 of them are elves and 2 humans who have held those positions for decades now. Normally, when a big-shot client wants mercenaries to work for them, these people favor the guilds they have under-the-table arrangements with. The association gets their cut, but my superiors also get their share from the guilds for bringing in a huge source of income. A new guild means dividing big-time and prestigious clients because new guilds often approach and steal away those clients from already popular and well-established guilds. Explained Logan, who had the voice of an old man. So you mean approving my guild is a conflict of interests? Asked Legolas with curiosity filled in his eyes. Yes, if one is well connected to them, they get you approved within a day. But if you creating a guild poses a threat to their potential incomes, then they'd stall you for months in the name of technicalities. This business is very unfair. Iterated Logan as he sighed. I see. And I assume approving a new guild also gets you some rewards as well. That's why you're telling me this, right? Asked Legolas with a coy smirk. You're a smart person, Mr. Legolas. It is indeed the case. That is why I'm telling you this inside information. To smoothen your situation, that is. Replied the Wolfkin. Mr. Varger, I do not have the time nor the will to play mind games and politics with these people. Instead of making friends with them and losing too much money investing just to please these people and receive a few breadcrumbs, I tend to work differently. So I have another proposition. This should be a win-win situation for both of us. Spoke Legolas and leaned forward as Loki, who stood behind him, isolated the room under a barrier. Legolas then told Logan a plan that just hatched in his mind. Nonsense. Are you out of your goddamn mind? How could you do that? Complained Logan in a voice full of disbelief. Mr. Executive Associate, you should know what kind of strength we possess by now, right? Asked the elf gleefully. Suddenly, Logan's expression turned grim. I have heard, he said with an incredulous expression. Because among the mercenaries who attended the gathering, he sent a few of his own people to the auditorium. This elf isn't simple. More than a mercenary, I feel like I'm talking to a businessman and war strategist. He's cunning, ruthless, and doesn't even trust me. He already saw through my initial plans. They're all saints and destined to make big waves after their debut as a guild. That's why I wanted to deepen our ties. Thought the Wolfkin. His initial ploy was to use the higher-ups as an excuse to make Legolas feel cornered, and then make the latter reliant and indebted to himself, so that, in the future, he'd see Logan as his only ally in the association. With that happening, Logan would also get to catch a few fish in the pond. But now he's taking the initiative instead. The idea he proposed, it's radical, but also beneficial to me as well. However, I can't blindly trust this elf. This Legolas Ragnarsson is a very calculative person who sees 10 steps ahead. He recollected his thoughts because soon things might get out of hand. So what do you think? Who do I have to deal with first? Asked the elven Saint Hole, smoking the cigar like a connoisseur. My direct superior in this department, the chief operating executive. You get rid of him and we won't have to worry about anything, responded Logan. Give me all the details. I'll be thorough, said Legolas and took out a pen and paper from his space ring. How are you going to do it? You're not going to kill anyone, right? Asked the Wolfkin cautiously. No such thing. We're honest people in an unjust world. Besides, how I solve our problems shouldn't be of any concern to you. You just have to provide the intel, said the elf in black and blue long coat attire. Logan then wrote down everything he knew about this superior of his who would cause them trouble later. Both Legolas and Logan wanted to get rid of an enemy even before they stood in their way. Legolas and Loki left the association and came to their suite. Just today they had used up all the money and were left penniless at this point. Yet there seemed no sense of urgency on the elven saint's face. Because the plan he proposed would not only help them progress in their objectives to establish themselves in Alfheim quickly, but would also solve a lot of their adversities too. When the night came, Khan and Ronan appeared in the northeastern end of Alfheim, in a region where only the noble class lived in their pristine and luxurious mansions in widespread properties. Soon, they infiltrated inside a particular estate using invisibility and phase shift, facing no obstacles as they passed through walls and all forms of protection barriers and magic formations. And finally, they stood inside a master bedroom where they saw a figure sleeping soundly. It's nothing personal, spoke Khan as he looked at the person who was going to become their victim, his soft and gentle voice masking the lack of empathy in his eyes. It's just good business. Inside a wide building with 10 floors were thousands of people either working their daily jobs or they were people who came to do transactions. This massive building with intrinsic and pleasant architecture colored in red and white was one of the 3 biggest banks of Alfheim, named as the Vikya Bank, meaning the fortress in Alashar, the ancient elven language. On the topmost floors where the top officials of the bank worked, a room akin to the office of a billion-dollar company's CEO, had a quiet yet very tense atmosphere. How may I be of help, Lord Zelver? Spoke a well-dressed elf with glasses as he bowed respectfully towards the person sitting across his desk. This middle-aged elf was the deputy general manager of the Vikya Bank, but even someone of such a prestigious and powerful standing was talking respectfully to the visitor in front of him. A golden-haired obese elf adorning a red and yellow coat with blue straps on his shoulder, who had a double chin and round face, spoke in an authoritative tone. I have come to do some checking on behalf of our president. We heard some news that your bank is no longer safe for us to keep doing business with you. What, my lord? There must be some misunderstanding. I'm sure someone has been spreading lies. We're definitely far more secured even than the other 2 top banks of Alfheim, responded the deputy general manager, hiding a bit of anger and disdain in his mind. But he couldn't talk back because although he was an elf, the young and oversized elf in front of him was actually a high elf, someone with the family lineage of the high nobles class. Oh, so are you implying that my uncle is a fool who sent me on a useless errand without gathering valid information? Asked the noble high elf to the middle-aged manager. No, I didn't mean it like that. Please be at ease, my lord. Your money and all the assets are safe with us, said the manager in an obedient tone. I'll be the judge of that. Let me take a tour of your safe house and see if our information is wrong or not, said the fat elf in an overbearing tone. But my lord, that's against our policy. Only the acting president of your association can be allowed to do so, He responded in a calm voice. Is that so? Then do you want me to report to my uncle that there's indeed something wrong, and that's why you wouldn't let me inspect the safe house? Tread carefully, Mr. Manager. This could be the last time our organization's speaking with each other, said the high elf with an offended expression. The deputy manager had a constricted expression for 2 reasons. 1, he couldn't afford to defy or offend the high elf who seemed to be in his 30s because of their social standing. Just a single word from the latter could get him out of the job, since the organization he presented was one of the top 2 clients of their bank. 2, he couldn't recheck the story this person told because of the familial ties he had with the president of the organization this high elf represented. After thinking for a while, the former could only give up and nodded in agreement. 30 minutes later, the deputy manager brought the noble high elf to an underground facility that was 8 floors below their main building. As they walked inside and followed 3 to 4 methods of certifying the manager's identity and passed through a group of guards, magic cannons directed at the entrances and the protection barriers, both of them finally arrived at a 1-kilometer-wide and securely compartmentalized floor. Here, there were thousands of safes as well as a few hundred fully armored guards holding high-grade weapons, varying from different jobs and ranks. Most of these safes held a lot of private and incriminating belongings of powerful people who wanted no one to find them. The tour continued for quite some time, and finally, they reached a place where the bank minted their own money. This was a part where the money that had to be released in the market would be made and then get registered before they spread it in the economy. Unlike how things worked on Earth, the verified banks in the Zivid Empire had the rights to create their money for day-to-day transactions. But the condition was that it was done under the supervision of the imperial clans and the Ministry of Economics, who also worked for the imperial clan itself. All right, I've seen enough. I conclude that our money and assets are in safe hands. My uncle would be pleased, and so will the other officials of the Mercenary Association, spoke the high elf as he walked with heavy steps. Pleased my buttocks. Who the hell are you to judge our capabilities, you heap of meat? Cursed the manager in his mind. This was a total waste of time for him, while he should be doing more important work instead of acting as a guide for a spoiled noble. But he kept his misgivings in his mind and put a smile on his face as he escorted this man back to the entrance. However, without him or any person working in the minting section realizing, something, or someone walked out of a void crack at one of the dark corners. While the duo of elves was heading back to the entrance of this guarded facility, the fat elf also revealed a light smirk as they ascended to the ground levels using a crystalline glassed magic lift. As for the figure who appeared out of the void crack, he had a tall stature and was completely covered in a black cloak and was masked toe-to-toe to the point one couldn't even tell his species. Soon, a dozen more individuals appeared out of his shadow, and all of them were well cloaked just like the former. Master, are we going to steal all this money? Wouldn't that greatly affect innocent people of this city who have accounts here? Asked Ronan telepathically. That was never my intention, Ronan. It's called stealing when you take away something that belongs to someone else. But it is not stealing, replied Khan with a smirk as he revealed his real intentions of infiltrating here. If you print your own money. The heist had begun after one of Khan's doppelgangers used the appearance of the high elf while adorning the latter's clothes that they took from the noble elf's mansion when they infiltrated it under the cover of night. Meanwhile, they had already portrayed his character perfectly, while the metamorphosis ability completely hid Khan's existence as a fake. The real Khan, on the other hand, was following the doppelganger through the true dimension ever since they entered the bank. This allowed them a perfect opportunity with no forceful entry, and finally, Khan had successfully infiltrated one of the most secure places in Alfheim easily. A few hours had passed since Khan, Ronin, and assassin subordinates from the Legion army had successfully taken control over this floor. First, using Earth Sense skill, they removed all modes of alarm systems, detection barriers, recording devices, and decommissioned the guards silently. No one outside this underground floor even knew that their most secure place was currently going through a heist. Khan then threatened the workers to keep working in the mint and carry till they received an order from him. During this process, Khan and Ronan had modulated their voice, and their completely cloaked and well-covered figure didn't reveal their faces or even their species. One couldn't even tell if the enemies were humans or elves or any humanoid hybrids. There were new entries and guards came as part of their shifts, but their group easily neutralized them and forced them to respond that everything was all right in the mint. In the meantime, Khan received his aura as a semi-saint to these people and acted like a tyrant by beating some guards from time to time so no one would get any funny ideas. Unlike the denominations of other empires Khan had been to so far, Idikar also had invisible runes and mana signatures, hidden in them similar to how serial numbers worked on notes to check the legitimacy of the notes. So it took longer than expected. There was already an enormous amount of hard cash stored, and within 24 hours, they minted and runed the desirable amount. All of this wealth was unregistered in the system and was to be circulated in the economy soon. But this legitimate money wasn't part of the system yet, and Khan didn't steal anything else from the locked chambers and lockers because he didn't want to make an enemy of the big guns of the empire who'd come after him for their precious belongings. Finally, he made everyone faint using war dominance, amplifying his aura, and then pulled everything inside his dimensional domain with just a single tap of his foot. Later, Khan dressed as one of the guards and left the bank without leaving a trail. This way, even if the bank brought in some space magic expert, they wouldn't be able to track him furthermore. Khan felt no regret doing this heist because he wasn't actually hurting anyone innocent this way except for the corporation which minted money when the top 1% needed it while taxing the common citizens extensively to make up for the defaulted money or tax fraud committed by powerful people. Banks worked mainly on credit instead of hard cash. Thus the money was only 200 million Idikar and Khan printed 300 million in one day, making him the owner of 500 million Idikar without even working from the bottom like he had to in Rocco's empire years ago. And since no jewelry or belongings of high-level clients kept in lockers were stolen, even the bank would be forced to keep the matter inside their close circles. Plus, the bank wouldn't announce it to the world because they'd lose all their customers if things were stolen right from their most secure treasury. Then who'd even keep a single coin in this bank? As for the aftermath of this heist, Khan was looking forward to it. The next day, there was utter chaos in the top management of the Mercenary Association. The COO High Elf was arrested by the Imperial authorities under the charges of aiding and abetting a heist, of which he had no idea of till the royal guards came into his office. This arrest suddenly put even the president of the association and everyone managing all the departments of the association in shambles. In the High Elf's office, some of the unregistered stolen money was found, and the clothes Khan wore yesterday were also shown to be half-burnt, as if the obese elf had tried to erase the evidence. As for the stolen created money, Khan and the gang had spent most of it yesterday for their new guild building big enough for now as well as all the supplies needed to last them for the next few months easily. Hard cash couldn't be tracked easily if it was used for transactions before it was reported missing. Khan, in his Legolas appearance himself, had come to witness this arrest as one of the attendees in the main hall. He felt no regret in using this fat elf noble as a scapegoat for the job because they had investigated his history beforehand. Thanks to good old nepotism, this high elf got his position only because he was the current president's nephew and thus got the job despite not having the skills and brains for it. In the Elven Empire, a high elf who never even held a weapon in their entire life could be named as the general of the military just because of their lineage, even if there were 100 war veterans with experience and wits for it. Harassing female employees, even forcing employees to serve him for his own personal work that had nothing to do with the association's work, embezzling money, favoring partner guilds, and intentionally causing the downfall of many mercenary and envoy groups to force them to submit to his allies. He did all of that. He always dumped all the work on his associates, Logan Varger being one of them, while living leisurely as he only ate like a pig and enjoyed the pleasures of life. But no one had raised a voice because of how things worked in Zivet Empire where high elves reigned supreme. Even now, due to lack of evidence, he'd get to leave the custody soon with a slap on the wrist since he was part of high noble lineage. But he'd have to leave the position to make a display of faith to the bank. And with him gone, there'd be a struggle for the vacant position. As for the politics and struggle for power that was to come, Khan had no interest in it because now, he had solved their financial problems for now. And the next objective being the top of the list, establishing the Misthios Guild. 3 days later, in the eastern section of Alfheim at the time of night, An estate spanning 2 kilometers in radius, which consisted of several buildings with multiple floors and wide open grounds in some sections, came into sight. The atmosphere was filled with loud noises, and a crowd of more than 600 individuals of different species chatting and singing loudly was revealed inside the largest building of them all. The scenario was of the feasting and celebration, and the main cause of this joyous occasion being the official opening ceremony of the Misthios Mercenary Guild. The current place of this event was actually the new main headquarters of the Misthios Guild that Khan and the group bought a few days ago. This 2 kilometers wide estate had multiple buildings and even living rooms allocated for all the members of the guild, with every facility available to them. This was one of the requirements for a guild, that every new guild had to have a base headquarters and their mercenaries should be living in it. There were also a few buildings dedicated to departments such as medical care, food halls, and armory in this establishment. On the left end was an open training ground for the members where they could train and fight together as a team, because it was the most important part of the trade. Whether one had to guard an envoy or kill an enemy force, both types of battles demanded teamwork and understanding of each other as fighters and as a person. So this was a part that couldn't be skipped no matter what. Khan and the group had officially received the approval to set up the guild after all the documentation and necessary formalities were verified. Because in the meanwhile, after Khan had successfully performed a heist and made $500 million in a single day, Logan had gotten into an advantageous position after the High Elf COO was kicked out of his post and the matter was still being investigated. Logan was now the interim senior executive temporarily and received the authority to approve a guild based on his judgment. Although this position was most likely to be taken away until the association found another capable person, or more likely another elf for the job, Logan would hold the reign. Khan as Legolas had already instructed the Brown Wolfkin on what to do in the small time frame where he had access to the sensitive matters of the top brass. And soon, they'd start the real work without anyone ever finding out that the leader of the Misthios Guild was the main culprit all along. With this, Khan created a strong ally in the association and also solved their current financial problems in a single shot. The merry celebration and the feast continued in the hall as everyone ate to their heart's content. Although this was a members-only party, the way these people wolfed down the meat and delicious food made Khan question his previous conceptions of this civilization instead. I hope this doesn't turn out like the Red Wedding. At the end of the grand hall that was to be their main assembly hall, where all the important announcements regarding the guild would be made from now on, was a long and wide table where Legolas and the other commanders of the guild were seated and exchanging conversations with the members who came to make a small chat. As for the structure of the guild itself, Khan divided the members based on ranks. Each group was made based on classes and abilities that aided them in a battle. Currently, the members had the order from F rank to S rank. Some groups have their team captains who were given that position based on their rank as fighters and experience in the trade. As the celebration was coming to an end at the midnight, a group of 5 people, all of whom were at peak Grandmaster rank, signaled each other through eye contact and then walked towards the sitting arrangement where Khan in his Legolas appearance was enjoying an aromatic wine as he reveled in the sweet and sour taste. As these people came forward and stopped in front of the long and wide table, all the attendees suddenly stopped. "What is it?" asked Legolas in a carefree tone. "Leader Ragnarsson, now that every member of the guild is present here, we'd like to talk to you about something," spoke a stone-skinned swordsman whose head looked like a chameleon but had a wider mouth with sharp teeth akin to a crocodile. "Speak," said Legolas, and munched on a big piece of succulent meat placed on his golden plate on the table. "We feel that we need to alter a few terms of the contract in good faith. It will also help us bring in more people to the guild and spread its fame," said an elven mage donning yellow robes. "Oh really? What do you propose?" queried Legolas with an anticipating gaze. Soon, the 5 members started talking about how to create different groups and hand them particular areas to live in based on their prior connections, areas of expertise and knowledge of different parts of Alfheim. They also talked about expanding the guild's reputation and some incentive for members if they brought in new people and had them join the guild. Legolas and the Saint Commanders listened to this suggestion. However, their expression wasn't that of joy or approval. Rather, All of them revealed a slightly gloomy countenance. "Do you represent the will of everyone else present here?" asked Legolas in a soft voice. All 5 representatives nodded together. It didn't take a genius to guess that all of them had banded together, and then making these suggestions wasn't out of coincidence. There was some sort of hidden motive going on here. However, in the following moments, the elf Ironborn's eyes turned red, fuming with anger. Someone had orchestrated this whole thing from outside and was just using these people as an excuse. So this was a time to react instantly. "Ah, this is so exhausting," frowned Legolas, and the very next moment, boom! Legolas used War Dominance Aura and instantly put unbearable and leaden pressure on all the members who were previously enjoying the feast. The 5 representatives, on the other hand, also received the edge of his immense killing intent. Legolas' black and dark red aura was so terrifying and chaotic that no one could even breathe properly. Shing! 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 Right in front of everyone. More than 800 elemental greatswords appeared out of nowhere and floated above their heads, as if one blink of an eye and they'd slash them apart in 2. Khan was currently a 2nd stage saint now. His limit was 1,000 swords using the Sword Emperor skill, which was a saint rank version of Sword King. And he was forced to use it on not his enemies but his allies instead. His gaze then turned grim and infuriated as he looked at all the people around the hall. "I gave you bastards a helping hand when you were struggling to make a living. I already gave you lot a signing bonus and offered terms favorable to you and your families in case you die on the job. But now you bastard ingrates are already demanding more than what I offered," refuted Legolas in an angered voice as he jeered all the members. "The guild hasn't even received our first commission and you're already talking a big game. Or are you still under the impression that we need you?" he asked, his stern and domineering voice reaching all their ears. "Didn't I make this clear? We will deliver on promised terms as long as you do what you're told to do. Who the hell said you have a say in the decision-making of this guild?" bellowed Legolas as he stood up and gave a death stare to all the members. "You're bound by the contract. You can't abandon the guild for the next 6 months. I don't care what arrangements or relationships you people had before this. But this isn't a place you play family. Follow the protocols we set and your life will be easier. Make unnecessary trouble and you're easily replaceable," he declared in an overbearing and authoritative voice. Legolas then retracted his saint pressure and let everyone breathe again. This action of his turned the whole environment of joy into a scary scenario. But the elf felt no regret in doing so. Khan had no plans to become a righteous leader or cared about these people. This was a give-and-take relationship for both sides. They needed the numbers to form a guild while these people needed strong leaders to make a living. If anyone started voicing their opinions or forming factions in their group, the guild would fall apart later. Like how Democrats and Republicans divided the country. A monarchy was often what maintained order and law more than the free will and voice of the people in the world of Vantria. Thus Khan had to set a hierarchy from the very beginning. Ronin, change of plans. Create new teams and put everyone in different groups as well as replace their living quarters. Nobody should be in a group with any of their former friends and allies from their previous teams before they joined. Ordered Khan. To his command, Ronin spoke his own opinion. "But Master, it will bring instability to the guild. It's worth the wait. Reformation takes time, but it's better if we get rid of the problem before it causes any trouble. These lots will get accustomed to working with each other in time, and we won't have to worry about them creating factions in the guild later. I don't have time to deal with these petty mind games, dramas and quarrels inside the house. Our goals are beyond their understanding." Ordered Khan. "I will arrange it so," responded Ronin. The next day, a secret letter arrived at Khan's new mansion, where he and the subordinates lived for now. Ronin came and handed him a letter. "I guess today is going to be our official debut," spoke Khan after he read the contents of the letter, because this was the most crucial part for any mercenary guild that was formed. Their first client. At the time of the sunset, Legolas was sitting in his new office in the main headquarters while the newly hired staff for official paperwork and management was arranging things in order. A woman dressed in black and velvet attire similar to that of a flight attendant walked in and informed about the arrival of an important individual. Step, step. A set of footsteps echoed in the hallway as a group of people steadily walked in through the door. Legolas got up and welcomed his new guests. This was their first client, and on top of it, they belonged to a particular species. Kebika, a species native to the Elven Empire that was unlike anything Khan had seen in Vantria so far. Because the members of these species were nothing but humanoid figures made completely out of white and translucent mist. Khan had learned about this species during his time when he was conducting extensive research on the Zivid Empire. Kebikas were one of the very few species in Vantria that did not have a core inside their bodies. Due to their physical state, they could not form a core, had eyes, or any facial features. Every member of this species was akin to a walking, talking miniature tornado, just that the intensity of the mist in their body was negligible. As for the way they reproduced, when one Kebika died, their body would be split into 4 parts and 4 new orbs of mist would form. These newborns needed intense care and suitable situations to grow up, otherwise they'd die soon. Thus, the Kebika were a united species, always looking after each other and working by joining hands to preserve their species. In front of Legolas stood 3 Kebika, all adorning white robes with golden outlines and a hood over them. Pleasure to meet you. I am Legolas Ragnarsson, the leader of the Misthios Guild. Spoke Legolas and raised his hand, making a gesture of creating an imaginary wave of water. The Kebikas on the other end were taken aback. Although no one could guess their expressions, it was evident that they were moved. All 3 of them greeted Legolas in the same way. In reality, this was how their species greeted each other. Not many people cared to follow this custom, so Legolas taking the liberty to follow their customs left a good impression. All 4 of them then sat on the luxurious sofas at the meeting section of the room, and the one in the middle spoke. My name is Reuben Landegrav. This is Hariv Mastagrav and Zypon Turvagrav. The client introduced himself and the others. Even their voices carried an aftersound of gales of wind. So tell me, Mr. Landegrav, what can I do for you? Asked the elf in a nonchalant voice. Soon, the group started telling Legolas about their situation and what kind of help they needed. The 3 Kebika were part of the same clan and were the owners of 3 different companies who worked together and did the import and export business from different ends of the Zivid Empire and brought their collective goods to trade in the capital. However, in the past 5 months, their envoys were attacked by a group of armed pirates along the way many times, and all their belongings were stolen. During a few incidents of retaliation by their side, the pirates killed thousands of their guards and workers who were only doing their jobs. This has happened 4 times already, and now close to 2,000 of your workers have died at the hands of those pirates. During the last attack, we learned that the other side has a second stage saint as bandit group leader. Spoke Reuben in an exasperated tone. Every time our travel route is leaked and the flying ships carrying out goods are besieged and stolen. Said Zypon, the 3rd Kebika. Legolas heaved a sigh and queried a few things. Why didn't you hire other mercenary guilds with saints then? Even if the imperial authorities take long to respond, the guilds would have done the job for a fair price. We did. 2 of such guilds with saints did take up the job to protect our envoys. However, both lost their saints stationed on the job. After that, no one tried to accept our offer. Said Hariv, the 2nd Kebika. There are obviously stronger guilds with even more saints. What did they say? Questioned Legolas with a curious gaze. There was no shortage of capable mercenary guilds who had stronger saints as well. So the client not hiring them raised suspicion in his mind. The truth is, Mr. Ragnarsson, they charge too much. Given the losses we've incurred recently along with the compensation we had to provide to the families of the deceased employees, we don't even have half the amount left they're asking for the commission. Spoke Reuben, his defeated voice signifying their precarious situation. Mr. Logan Varger said you'd be understanding of our situation. Suddenly, Zypon spoke in a hurried tone as if he was agitated. Legolas then nodded in response. By understanding, these Kebikas meant doing a favor to them and cutting a cheap price for the job. This was like making a desperate plea and Legolas knowingly cutting off his profits. But these Kebicas were their first client, and he needed to make some sacrifices to establish themselves as a capable guild for now. Normally, that's no way to do business, but since Mr. Varger sent you in good faith, I'll make a proposition, said Legolas with a playful smirk. Half payment in Idakar va half in SS rank cores. What do you say? He asked. How many? Queried Hariv. Legolas then showed them 5 fingers of his palm. 5 million? That much? Zypon asked in a worried tone. Don't be so surprised. People like you need hard cash more than materials to barter with someone. The more cash you save, the more transaction money you will have for future deals. Doesn't that appeal more to you than just cores that are used in machinery, day-to-day life appliances? Asked Legolas carefully. But SS rank cores are a commodity for the rich, especially for people of high standing and powerful forces. What use do you have for them? Asked Zypon again. That's my part to worry about. So tell me, what is your decision? Asked Legolas. We agree. Spoke all 3 Kebicas in unison. Theirs was a desperate situation and no one was willing to help them for half the price. In many ways, they were hanging by a cliff at this moment. So this deal seemed more suitable even if it came with a high number of mana cores and ores. Good. Then I'll send 2 of my experts, said the elven leader of the guild. Clap, clap. Legolas clapped his hands twice and 2 figures instantly appeared in the room, standing behind him. Meet 2 of my reliable commanders, spoke Legolas in a merry voice as he introduced the 2 generals who were to handle their first job. Dante và Loki. Legolas introduced Dante va Loki, who were actually Jugram and Serral in their new personas. Both generals stood proudly behind the chair Legolas was sitting on, revealing domineering nature through their gazes. Jugram as Dante now had crimson red hair falling to his shoulder and red iris in his eyes, while Serral as Loki had long white hair, falling close to his chest as his blue eyes also came into sight. Both these commanders of the guild were donning their respective armors and gears made by Albestro's back in Rocco's empire. These 2 will do the job, said Legolas as he introduced the 2 saints behind him. However, Reuben spoke in a concerned voice. How? Both of them are only first-stage saints. The enemy leader is a second-stage saint. Are you just taking it too casually because we're paying less? Asked the Kebica leader in a straightforward tone. But in response, you don't need to worry about that. Although they may seem weaker than that, said pirate group leader. Believe me, they're very capable fighters. Chuckled Legolas. But if we want to get rid of the enemy, we need to lure them out first without risking your goods and the lives of your employees, he proposed. All 3 Kebicas nodded. Too many lives had already been lost because of these pirate attacks. Legolas then told them his plan. But what if the plan fails? We're also putting our lives at risk here, spoke Zopin in a discontent tone. Then I won't ask you for a single note of Idakar. You also won't have to compensate me for any of my losses either, responded Legolas with a confident and charming smile. The 3 Kebicas didn't know that although Dante va Loki were only first-stage saints, they were already close to a breakthrough in levels. And on top of it, both of them were fairly capable of fighting a 3rd-stage saint on their own. Thus, a secret arrangement was made between the Misthios Guild and the Kebica clients. The following day, hundreds of massive flying helicarrier made with elven technology and craftsmanship were carrying loads of merchandise in crates and boxes through a common traveling route. This massive envoy carrying close to 1,000 personnel was heading towards Aletnal, the capital of the Zivid Empire. This was a common and widely popular route towards the capital used by people coming from Alfheim. Thus, the security provided by the imperial authorities was tight. However, the captain's ship which was leading the envoy suddenly changed direction and headed left, the rest following behind it. The crew on this main ship was actually the new mercenary members of Misthios Guild dressed as normal staff and workers, while Reuben, Hariv and Zypon were in the main cockpit, waiting along with Dante and Loki. The merchandise crates were empty, just for display under Legolas devices, and apart from the pilot crew, only selective individuals were the normal employees. After half an hour, their flying envoy finally appeared through a desolate forested region that they never used before. But suddenly, swoom, swoom, shrill, humming sounds rose intensely, and soon, a couple of enormous white and black patterned warships suddenly rose high in the sky, revealing themselves on the other side of mountains just 5 kilometers away. Just as we expected, there was a mole in your enterprise who leaked the secret route we were taking this time. That's why these pirates were waiting here so leisurely, said Loki in a soft yet creepy tone. We'll handle things from here, said Dante, and both saints disappeared from the spot. They both appeared at the wide and long deck and gazed at the warships tagged along by a dozen flying ships that were heading towards their envoy. You know what to do, said Dante, and prepared himself. Man, I want to kill some people. This isn't fair, complained Loki as if he was bored to death. Just do what you're told to do. Master sent us both to cover both defense and offense at the same time, spoke Dante, paying no heed to his fellow commander's complaints. I can do both of that, rebuked Loki. Not without revealing your identity as an undead necromancer or your darkness elemental skills, scoffed Dante. You sure you don't need my help? Asked Loki again, this time, not having the slightest worry in his eyes. To his question, Dante only chuckled lightly. Since when have I ever needed someone's help in fighting against an army? He spoke and lunged high in the air. All right then, do as you wish. Just remember what Master ordered us to do. Leave none alive, he said in a mischievous tone. A few seconds later, Dante's figure appeared in the middle of both groups. Now, he commanded. Loki, who stood on the deck, quickly stomped the bottom of his scepter, and in just 10 seconds, he cast a thick red barrier that rose high in the sky and quickly encompassed all the flying envoy like a round dome in a 2 kilometers radius. But due to this protection barrier he made, no one could see what was happening outside. What the hell are you doing? Your ally is fighting them alone outside. How are you going to defend us? Clamored Reuben from the cockpit, his voice reverberating inside the entire barrier. Don't worry. It's not us you should be worried about. It's them, responded Loki with an insidious grin. At this point, even the members of the guild who hid their identities as employees were curious because they had never seen any of their commanders fight before. But right when everyone was lost in thoughts, boom! A massive crimson-red aura exploded outside the protective dome, sending most of the pirate flying ships a few meters backwards. And at the center of this massive and chaotic eruption filled with hellfire, Dante's transformed figure was revealed to everyone. Suddenly, his hair turned shoulder-length white. 2 long and pointy horns came out of his forehead and formed a band. These horns were full of blistering red fire and looked like hot magma was running under them. Shing! A massive red giant sword appeared in Dante's hand, while an armor comprised of black, red, and yellow appeared over his body. Just now, Dante aka Jugram had replaced the old armor that they wore for normal work and day-to-day lives. And after more than a month, he summoned them again. These were his new biggest trump cards in a battle. Balrog and Ares. Jugram floated in the sky, giving an indomitable and fierce gaze towards the approaching army of warships and flying ships of the pirate crew whilst equipping Balrog armor and Ares' giant sword. And now, he was free to use his most powerful skills without turning into his true Diablo's legendary rank form. On the enemy side, one of the 100-meter-tall warships was the main captain ship where the leader of this group, who was a second-stage saint, was seated in. He carefully observed Jugram's aura with a skeptical countenance. He's a first-stage saint, but that armor and giant sword gives off a very dreadful feeling. Let's not waste time here. Charge all our cannons and kill him in a single shot, analyzed and commanded a broad figure in the main cockpit. Tongue! Tongue! The metallic cannons on the sideways of the warships and small artillery guns at the front of the small flying ships started charging different elemental beams and shots as they targeted the Hellblazer general. Bringing guns in a fight against me, so primitive, spoke Jugram in a jarring voice. He raised Ares high in the air and released the Sword Emperor skill. Shing! Clang! Clink! Before the warships even managed to charge themselves fully, over 400 massive crimson-red giant swords, each being 10 meters long, suddenly appeared above his head, almost forming a small hurricane as they floated clockwise. Attack! ordered the leader of this pirate group. Boom! Bang! All the guns and cannons shot their bullets and elemental beams, attacking Jugram with all their force. A massive red cloud burst and spread in the surrounding 1-kilometer region, sending dozens of shockwaves as the sky and the ground was covered in red light. The trees on the ground were uprooted and trembled just from the aftershocks as the entirety of the 2 kilometers region was devastated after the explosion. Many among the pirate crew sighed in relief as a rush of victorious feelings swept over their minds, while the people inside the dome, who couldn't see what was happening outside, were becoming afraid with each passing moment. Sizzle! Sizzle! Finally, the cloud of fire subsided and a grim voice echoed. "Is that all?" A tall 20-meter wall made of 400 aura giants' words appeared, and behind it was Jugram, completely unscathed. "What the saint leader of the pirate group had his eyes wide open in shock. "All right then, my turn!" exclaimed Jugram, and the very next moment, another burst of crimson-red aura spread in the surrounding 3 kilometers, completely encompassing their battlefield, while leaving the envoy behind him untouched. Massive and fervent waves of hellfire spread and covered both the ground and the sky. Crackle! Crackle! The temperature inside this battlefield suddenly rose to 500 degrees Celsius, and all the trees instantly caught fire as wide pillars of hellfire erupted from the ground from hundreds of places, some even directly hitting the 100 or so flying ships. Hell Domain! Jugram had activated his Hell Domain. "Arg!" shouted a human among the pirate crew as his skin started drying at a rapid pace, and then the clothes were getting overheated, making the vast majority sweat profusely in just a dozen seconds. Soon, most of the fighters started feeling the scalding heat in the atmosphere. Anyone without good quality armor and ice elemental class was getting roasted alive, while the flying ships started malfunctioning because of the instant rise in temperature. Jugram had crucially overturned the situation just by activating his domain. But the next moment, all of his aura giants' words pointed their pointy edges towards the enemy group and started attacking. In the meantime, half of the summoned weapons encircled the flying ships, leaving no room for escape as Jugram himself lunged at the main warship. He quickly activated Bloodstorm, and like a rainstorm, the blood from the dying enemies flew towards his body. With each passing second, his body was absorbing the blood and his strength stat was rising rapidly. Slash! Jugram made a horizontal slash, and a massive and wide elliptical wave of hellfire struck a flying ship and burned the entire crew alive, as well as destroying the ship. Jugram was a variant true demon with chaos element. The more people died in a battle against him, the stronger he became. In just 5 minutes, his strength stat doubled, and then he used the blood sacrifice skill. This time, it was Ares who started sucking in the blood from the enemies, and the dense deathly aura around the giant's word rose by a huge margin. Soon, the Limit Breaker skill took effect, and all of his stats rose by 2.5 times, making him reach his peak strength, while hundreds of people were dying just by being present inside the Hell Domain. In the meantime, the stronger opponents started attacking him but failed to land any injuries because Balrog armor had an inbuilt defense of a dragon's body. Even a powerful attack from a fellow saint wouldn't be able to kill him in a single strike. Run! Retreat! Dozens of people of different species clamored in fear as the madman saint fiercely attacked their ships and wantonly massacred their fellow pirates, opposite of what one would expect when surrounded by thousands of enemies. Wails and screams of helpless people resounded in the surroundings as both Jugram and his summoned swords absolutely slashed apart and destroyed dozens of ships in just a few minutes. It had only been 5 minutes, and more than 400 people from the enemy side were dead. However, these were the weakest among the bunch, who had subpar skills and armors. Yet they accomplished their job. That was making Jugram strong enough to face the real enemy. Just then, a 100-meter-tall, ginormous black and white-colored fist appeared in the sky, descending with unfathomable might as it targeted Jugram with extreme killing intent. Boom! A dreary and loud clash echoed on the battlefield, the aftershocks vibrating the ships and the ground equally. But the enemies were simply flabbergasted as they saw the aftermath. The massive fist was stopped midair by Jugram with his bare hand. And right then, "Who the hell are you?" a begrudging and loud voice echoed as a middle-aged man with ripped build and long brown beard appeared in the sky. Dante Searcherson of the Misthios Mercenary Guild. Who am I talking to? Responded Jugram and waved his left hand, sending the massive fist crashing on the ground below. I'm Steven, leader of the Panda Raiders pirate group. The second stage brawler saint who had 2 epic rank gauntlets equipped announced his identity as well as the name of the pirate raiders. For some reason, I do not like those 2 names in a single sentence. Spoke Dante and gave a deathly stare. Who is this guy? Wondered Steven, but just then, damn it, he has a legendary rank armor and weapon. Who the hell did we mess with? He quickly asked himself. Legendary rank armors and weapons were extremely rare even among the Imperial clan of the Empire. But Dante using them during the battle meant he was someone with deep background and high standing. Well, that was nothing but a deduction made by the pirate group leader. You killed my men and damaged my ships. There's no way you're living out of here alive, clamored Steven in rage. To his declaration, Dante replied only with a smirk. Let's dance. 30 minutes later, the scene of the battlefield had completely changed. Almost all of the battlefield was charred and filled with smoke. Many ships and both warships were destroyed beyond recognition. Slash. Snip. One of the Aura Giants' words slashed a group of 5 in half instantly, spreading their entrails and half-torn bodies on the floor of a ship. Similar scenarios occurred where Jugram's Giants' words were cutting the pirates in half, chopping them vertically from the head and having their brain matter splattered on the floor. Some demi-humans had their fur burnt first till they were roasted alive due to the scorching hellfire, while many magic-class fighters had their barriers and skills broken into smithereens, killing them effortlessly. Their cries for mercy resounded loudly to the point that even the people inside the protective barrier made by Loki could hear their agonizing screams. At this point, all their weapons and armors were melted into liquid form, and as for their leader, Blurg! Steven retched a chunk of blood as his lower half and little friend was turned into squashed tomato under Jugram's foot. And finally, all the Panda Raiders were brutally massacred. Thanks to his own abilities, Jugram was now comparable to a 3rd stage saint after killing more than 2,000 pirates, and because of Hell Domain and Wrath of Vajra being in effect, his enemy was no different than a 1st stage saint in front of him. Jugram had shattered his leg bones, both of his arms, and then pulled his gauntlets out of his hands. Man, I hate pirates, said Jugram in a ghastly tone as he revealed his peak bloodlust. He turned over the wailing Steven, who was screaming in agonizing pain and begging for mercy. A terrifying scream echoed, sending shivers to everyone who heard it as Jugram shoved that gauntlet inside Steven's ass. This time, the pain was so unbearable that Steven fainted on the spot. TCH, so weak. He couldn't even last for 3 minutes, said Jugram in a disappointed tone. Step. The following moment, Jugram stomped on Steven's head and crushed it to paste, coloring the ground red as the brain matter spread like crushed watermelon. All right, let's do the thing, he said and started using his saint pressure to gather all the bodies. 5 minutes later, Loki removed the protective barrier around the envoy. But as soon as he did so, all 3 Kebika clients along with the members of the Misthios Guild were shocked to their core. A burning black battlefield with charred trees and white smoke was revealed to everyone. And in the center of this destroyed area, there was a black throne mended out of burnt bodies, bones, and ashes. A man with crimson-red hair was seated on it like a king. At his moment, everyone realized something. This wasn't a fair battle, but a death sentence. The following day, Legolas was seated in his new mansion as he met Reuben, Hariv, and Zypon again in his office after yesterday's brutal massacre of enemies. Due to the group of enemies being pirates, no law held them accountable for defending their own lives, and thus, the first commission as hired bodyguards was a clean success. Legolas gazed at the 3 Kebika clients who had come to visit in his main office. Thank you for your help, Mr. Ragnarsson. Your warriors have indeed helped us greatly. Now we will be able to go back to our previous lives without worries, spoke Reuben, his voice revealing a satisfied and confident feeling. The next moment, all 3 of them took out a small box filled with elven space rings and handed them to Legolas. Half in Idikar and half in SS rank mana cores and ores as per our agreement, spoke Zypon. Legolas nodded and Scorpion, who stood behind him, took the boxes. Well, we did only what we're supposed to do in the first place. It was a pleasure doing business with you, responded the elf guild leader dressed in a black and blue long coat. However, I don't think this whole thing is over. There is still a mole in your organization, he iterated in a stern voice. But now they can't do anything to us, can they? I mean, the pirate group targeting us is already finished. So there won't be any harm from now, said Hariv in a curious tone. Step. Just then, the man of the hour who saved the day walked in. I wouldn't say that, esteemed sirs. Those pirates were extremely well-geared and equipped. Their leader had epic rank weapons as well. Those things can't be acquired easily, spoke Dante in a stoic voice. Legolas then chimed in and continued in a grim voice. I'm afraid they weren't pirates, but hired goons by your enemies. He iterated out of nowhere. Gasp. What do you mean? Asked Reuben. They had warships and hundreds of flying ships. And think about their leader himself. Which saint in this empire would be so stupid as to lower himself to be a pirate group leader when he could be in a position of authority because he was a second-stage saint and a human at that? He could easily work for high nobles or join the military. His life would have been full of prestige and luxury. Yet he went as far as specifically targeting your envoys and merchandise for the past 5 months. What does this tell you? Asked Legolas after revealing some hard facts about the situation. You mean? Yes, you're being targeted by a powerful enemy. A business rival or corporation, I presume, stated Legolas confidently. Soon, he started stating some more facts about the attack and how the people from the authorities didn't help their respective organizations, making the 3 clients even more afraid for their lives and the future of their business organizations. Please, Mr. Legolas, you have to help us, pleaded Reuben, the other 2 nodding with him. I will, if we can carry on with our previous arrangement. From now on, I will send Dante and Loki with your envoys whenever you make such big transactions or travel to the capital, assured the Elven Ironborn. Few more details were discussed and the clients left with a sense of relief. The Misthios Guild didn't just become a mercenary guild but a savior in their eyes who helped them in times of peril when others didn't even bother them to give a glance because of their economical problems. Finally, it was only Khan and Ronan in their alternate personas left in the office. So how do we find the mole and the people targeting them? Asked Ronan in a curious voice. But to his question, Khan let out a devious smile and chuckled as he responded. That's the neat part. We don't. Ronan reacted with a curious expression. Why do you think I told Jugram and Cyril to not leave anybody alive? Asked Khan with a grin. So they won't have anyone left to investigate. And after we revealed this fact about someone intentionally targeting their business, the clients will be reliant on our guild for protection. He revealed his true intentions. And since this arrangement of half payment with Idikar and half with SS rank cores benefits them, they will keep doing business with Misthios Guild for a long time. Spoke Khan as he started laughing. In a way, Khan made their first client as their long-term customer just by working for them once. I see. Then what do we do from now on? Asked Ronan again. Spread the word about our arrangement with the 3 Kebikas and their business organizations, and how one of the first-stage saint commanders of our Misthios Guild single-handedly killed 2,000 enemies, destroyed 2 warships, hundreds of flying ships, and killed a second-stage saint by himself. Use people from information organizations or criminal groups of Alfheim to spread this matter to the population and big corporations. Ordered Khan. This was just one of the main steps he had planned a long time ago. Once people confirm this from the 3 Kebika clients and their organizations, people will give more thought about us instead of giving preference to other guilds since they'd save half the money and only spend extra cores they have access to. Khan explained his reasons. SS rank cores were rare in Vantria no matter which empire. But powerful clans, noble houses, and top leading business organizations in goods and manufacturing sectors had no lack of them. One SS core was 10 times more potent than S rank core. but absorbing them depended on a person's capability who had invoked magic and fighting classes. For other saints, 1 million SS rank cores would be enough for 2 to 3 years for them to completely absorb. But for Khan and his subordinates who had Chamber of Exaltation along with Energy Plunderer skill, the same amount wouldn't even last for a month if they seriously cultivated. The current resource Khan and the gang had would last them only for a year and provide a rise in ranks and levels only by 1. Thus, they needed money only for the management of the guild, but their main goal was always the SS rank cores and ores. Even hunting inside dungeons would give them mostly low-quality cores and ores at best. This was more waste of time and resources instead of gaining anything significant. This was also one of the main reasons why Khan decided to open a mercenary guild instead of becoming an adventurer this time. So tell me, what have you found about the people who targeted us before we even made our debut? Asked Khan curiously. Ronan handed Khan a report and all the details. Master, how do we deal with this? They too have saints. Isn't it obvious? We'll send a message, stated Khan as he revealed his next step. The one that will set an example. In the evening of the same day, on the opposite side of the Alfheim was another guild headquarters mostly filled with red and green-colored buildings while thousands of mercenaries and normal people who were customers roamed the perimeter of this 5-kilometer-wide settlement. LNP. That was the name of this mercenary guild, which was also currently the second strongest guild in Alfheim because of its rich history and the large number of 25,000 mercenaries in the guild. From low-level commissions for local merchants to high-end customers such as business corporations of different sectors, this guild had its claws stuck in all places. This guild was the second biggest and strongest guild in Alfheim for one big reason. And that was the number of their saints. 7 saints. LNP Guild had 7 powerful saints as their main leaders in management. Before the debut of the Misthios Guild, they had the second highest number of saints in a guild. Even so, the current Misthios Guild was nowhere close to their level despite the lineup of saints. As the 2 suns set in the sky, a massive building with 5 floors was revealed, and at the end of it was the president's main office. So it didn't go as we planned, huh? Looks like their guild leader is a very cautious individual. Spoke an elf adorning red and blue attire, and his aura revealed his rank of a 4th stage saint. We can keep trying with other methods, President. Responded a human with a scholar-like appearance who himself was a 3rd stage summoner class saint. Our people contacted the new guild members of the Misthios Guild even before it was approved. If not for our connection in the Mercenary Association suddenly getting abdicated from his position and the COO, we would have stalled their debut for months before getting rid of the group entirely. I had our members tell the guild members of the Misthios Guild about how many top-notch guilds offered extra money for bringing new mercenaries as part of the incentive. But I guess their leader didn't fall for that. Revealed this human summoner. With an indignant expression, the president responded in a hoarse tone. Vice President Ranobes, that Legolas Ragnarsson seems like a smart person. He saw this thing coming from a mile away when his own guild members demanded this rule to be added to their contacts. I don't think we are dealing with someone new in the business. Rather, that Iroborn seems very experienced in this trade. He iterated with a dissatisfied expression. The duo inside this office were the main culprit behind the incident caused during the opening ceremony of the Misthios Guild. They had goaded most of the members of the newly formed guild into presenting the incentive to the main management. On paper, this seemed like a good opportunity for guild members to gain extra cash and also help a newly found mercenary guild quickly acquire more members and gain more firepower in the meantime. But the experts in this profession knew the real truth. Carelessly adding too many people to the guild in the long run, it'd reduce the quality of members as the guild grew in size. This would make the entire guild's foundation hollow from the inside right from the beginning. Many starting guilds and envoys used this incentive method to increase their numbers and gain fame, but they had no idea of the aftereffects that would show up a lot later. This had affected many guilds in the past, and then, most of them had no way to deal with it unless they cleared the majority of the guild members from within or disbanded the guild itself. The already established guilds also used this method to get rid of the competition and newcomers quite often. It was like leaving a Trojan horse to destroy Troy. Inside the main headquarters of the Misthios Guild, Khan was facing Omega and Ronin, his right-hand man and left-hand man respectively. Although it looked like Ronin found out the real truth about who was targeting them. But it was Khan who laid down the trap himself. On the night of the celebration, Khan as Legolas let out an outburst of anger to subdue the voice of new members who proposed the incentive idea to be added in their contracts. During that time, he also exuded his dense black and red aura that filled the entire assembly hall. But unbeknownst to all the guild members who felt like they'd die any moment under this insurmountable saint pressure, Khan used the blanket of darkness to send his assassins from the Legion force, who directly worked under Ronin inside the shadows of every member present during the celebration. They were ordered to report who contacted their members if they met again. Soon, the people of the Misthios Guild met other people who talked about the incentive and how great their own guilds were, trying to persuade them again to propose this idea to top management. Through these meetings, the assassins then hid in the shadows of those people and found it was the members of the LNP Guild who orchestrated these encounters and told them the setting. Misthios Guild members were innocent of this and had no idea. This setting also didn't breach their contract because they weren't harming the guild with malicious intent knowingly. The LNP Guild was just trying to poison the roots of Misthios Guild since the very beginning. "All right, it's time," said Khan, and all three of them disappeared from the spot. The next morning, the elf president of the LNP Guild suddenly received an emergency transmission. "No!" he exclaimed in disbelief and quickly left the building, appearing at the front gates of the guild headquarters. A crowd of thousands of mercenaries and customers alike was gathered at the front gate, mostly baffled and murmuring among themselves. Because at this moment, there was a pike stabbed in the ground, and above this pike was a detached head. "Ranobes!" the president shouted in grief as he looked at the terrified expression of their vice president, whose head was hung like a beacon and declaration. Below this head was a stone slate and a warning written in blood that even made the fourth stage saint feel a chill in his spine. "Next time, it will be your head, Mr. President." 2 days later, the word about the murder of the vice president of LNP Guild had spread like a wildfire in the entirety of Alfheim. Whether it was normal people, law authorities, adventurers associations, or even small mercenary teams, everyone heard the news of the third stage summoner saint being killed and his head put on a pike while making a public display in front of the guild's main entrance. But even the imperial authorities and law enforcement officials who came to investigate couldn't find a single clue about who and how they killed Ranobes. Plus, the declaration targeting the president of the guild himself aroused even more suspicions and changed the direction of the investigation. The motive behind the murder appearing to be an act of deep hatred and vengeance to many. Even those who had nothing to do with this matter or got affected by this incident remotely started making assumptions and theories of their own. Like who was so brazen and courageous enough to declare a war on the second strongest guild in the entire city? What did the president do for someone to kill their vice president out of rage and without fearing the consequences? And there wasn't even a big battle. How could a third stage saint die so easily? On the other hand, this news itself shook the entire community of mercenaries guilds, envoys and teams. Even other top guilds became wary of this and tightened their own security as a precaution. Although the elf couldn't talk about the truth to anyone and had many enemies, he already knew whose deed this was. However, he could do nothing else than play the part of an oblivious fool. Because he'd have to explain exactly what they did and how they targeted Misthios Guild just because they felt insecure about an emerging competitor. This sort of practice was already deemed unethical, and if the truth got out, it would greatly damage their reputation in the whole Alfheim. Sometimes, glory and fame could also become your chains and weakness. The fourth stage elven president was shaken and full of grief after the death of the vice president. He and the Ranobes built this mercenary guild from scratch when they were young and rookies in this trade. Both were outcasts of their respective clans a few decades ago, but fate brought them together and they became lifelong friends. At this moment, the president of the guild swore to himself, "Misthios Guild, you shall know my vengeance." Among the regions surrounded by the sky-touching and ginormous trees placed in Alfheim, there was a 10-kilometer-wide region filled with naval boats, trading outposts for sea products and bartering facilities for merchants and customers coming from different regions of the empire. Additionally, this region wasn't under the domain of imperial authorities or any large business corporations who handled the economy of this settlement. Rather, it was actually the main headquarters of a mercenary guild, a wide building colored in blue and yellow that was surrounded by dozens of three-story buildings, and lush greenery incorporated with the architecture came into sight. This was the main building of the top management of this mercenary guilds, and in the main office of their leader was a 6-feet-tall figure with long brown hair and multiple blue tattoos on the face, arms and legs, was working quietly. Behind the main desk, there was a big black battle axe carefully placed in a rack, while the owner was busy going through a lot of paperwork. Swoosh! A gentle gust of wind shook some of the papers on the desk as a lithe figure covered in black and brown attire, while having their face hidden behind a dark yellow mask, arrived on the other side of the desk. This figure quickly knelt in front of the leader, not even breathing loudly. "So what is the intel?" asked a feminine voice as the spy appeared hastily. "Not good, Guildmaster. Even our spies placed in LNP Guild couldn't find anything. However, there's even a bigger threat," spoke the spy, giving a hint of his old age. The one he knelt before was a 4th-stage saint, Lager the Skjold daughter, the guildmaster of this mercenary guild, who was also a direct descendant of the 4th hero of life, aka Bjorn Ironside. Nobody dared to look down on this woman who was a battle-axe warrior, because not only was she one of the strongest saints, but also the leader of the strongest guild in the entire Alfheim, the 12 Valkyries. The 12 Valkyries, the #1 mercenary guild of Alfheim, which was established only 5 years ago, but took the #1 position under their leader's ironclad command. This was a guild with the highest number of saints, and based on the name it was a peculiar one, because all the saints in this guild were females. Whether one was human or an elf, regardless of their species, only female saints were allowed in this guild gained the moniker of a Valkyrie. This peculiarity also made them gain attention way too quickly, especially in the females of the mercenary profession. So what happened? Are we in trouble too? To kill a 3rd-stage saint without even leaving a trace. It can only be done by someone with more saints and powerful abilities. Iterated Lager the in black and brown armor, which was made with custom Viking designs and had wolf fur on shoulders. The spy then replied in an obedient tone. "We don't know about that, but there's news spreading about a new guild named Misthios." He iterated. In the following moments, he explained the news of this new guild that formed only 5 days ago but became a hot topic soon. He also informed about Dante's accomplishments during their first ever job and how he instantly gained fame in the community. "All of them are saints. We don't know about their ranks either. But they're all Ironborns just like you, leader," spoke the spy and continued in a gloomy voice. "The leader is an elf with Ironborn descent," he declared. "What's the name of their guild leader?" asked Lagertha in a dominant and authoritative tone, a vertical battle scar on her left eye and cheek giving her fierce appearance despite her gorgeous face. "Legolas Ragnarsson," informed the spy. "Someone has the audacity to have the same surname as our great ancestor Bjorn Ragnarsson? I guess I'll have to meet this Legolas soon," spoke Lagertha as she looked out of the wide window of her office, gazing down at thousands of people under her domain. "Are you going to make an enemy out of him?" asked the spy with an uncertain voice. "Why the hell would I do that? I'm just curious. 8 saints, all Ironborn, and making a mercenary guild at that instead of joining the military or serving high elves of the Empire. This doesn't seem like some random people making a guild. Rather, a super force settling their roots in Alfheim." She spoke in a firm tone, her face revealing curiosity and concern of mind at the same time. "Relay my orders. Keep a close eye on the Misthios Guild, and do not intentionally provoke them or their saints unless necessary. We need to tread these matters carefully and see if they will become a friend," commanded Lagertha, planning her future steps at the moment. "Or become our biggest rivals." Khan as Legolas sat quietly inside his office while reminiscing the events of the death of the vice president of the 2nd strongest guild of Alfheim. After learning through their hidden assassins of Legion, Ronan reported that both the top two main guys of the guild were behind the ploy. Thus Khan and the group decided to send a loud and clear message from the very beginning. It didn't matter if the president tried to throw a tantrum later. As long as one wasn't a fifth-stage saint, their crew was capable enough to easily get rid of anyone who came in their way. As for the death of Ranobes, the old human third-stage summoner saint, the members of the Legion acted as a beacon of his location, and Khan traveled using True Dimension to his location. However, he didn't use Dimensional Cut to kill the saint. Dimensional Void didn't leave a trace behind because all it did was connect both World of the Living and True Dimension as a gateway. However, Dimensional Cut was a condensed attack made out of Space Force. Thus, it left a signature of space magic when used. Khan didn't want to create a trail that could link it to them, so he quietly traveled to Ranob's bedroom in Omega, as well as Ronan jumped out of his shadow. Ronan quickly used phase shift and invisibility to disappear and erase his existence. Khan activated Dimensional Domain, and Omega activated Gravity Domain, making the third stage incapable of using 75% of his strength. Khan's Dimensional Domain was a completely different space, so no one even sensed their saint pressures or auras, leaving no room for alarming anyone. And when the saint awoke from his sleep, Khan then used lucid reality. Although it didn't take full effect since it didn't work on targets who were stronger than Khan, the saint was under an illusion for just 1 second. In that very second, Ronan appeared behind the saint and using the curved Erebus daggers, he cut off Ranob's head without a problem. The trio robbed all the space rings he had while Ronan stole the soul of the saint using the soul collector skill. When the suns had yet to appear in the sky as the morning came, Khan and the group hung the head and wrote a message with the saint's blood to declare their clear intentions targeted specifically at the president. This was a message to the second strongest guild, showing their stance that no one could mess with them just because they were a new force in the business. And soon, if they willed it, Khan could reveal it to others through rumors if any other guild tried to make an enemy out of them. While Khan was lost in thought, a human female feline-kin, the one with ears and tail of a cat while dressing in Misthios guild's uniform, walked in. The female with a slim build was Khan's official attendant. "Guild leader, there's someone here to see you." She spoke in a meek and humble tone. "Send them in," replied Legolas. A human noble in yellow and black outfit similar to Victorian-era clothing walked in through the door and humbly bowed against him. Legolas Ragnarsson was an elf even if he was an Iroborn, so it was a precedent for humans to show respect towards the elves in Zivet Empire. "It is my honor to meet you, Sir Ragnarsson," said the human with a short mustache. "And who might you be?" "I'm but a humble messenger. I brought an invitation sent by my lord," spoke the man and respectfully handed Khan an invitation envelope. Legolas then read through the invitation and nodded. "There's a flying ship waiting for you," said the human. 5 hours later, Legolas and 2 of his commanders traveled outside Alfheim and reached a city surrounded by a mountainous region and waterfalls. The flying ship then landed in an open landing zone, and the trio was escorted to meet their soon-to-be client if things went smoothly. Finally, they reached the main hall of the owner of this region, who was an exalted noble. Exalted nobles were just human nobles who earned a region to rule and manage by the imperial rule after making great contributions to the empire through military or economical contributions. The one who sent Legolas the invite was one of such people. A meeting was held in the close circle as 3 individuals from Misthios Guild as guests were now facing the opposite side of the host, each side having only their main leader sitting on a luxurious chair while the 2 handymen standing behind them. An elderly noble with an extremely long gray beard and mustache appeared on the other side. His wrinkled skin and round golden glasses gave him an appearance of a well-experienced ruler and a businessman. "Greetings, Mr. Ragnarsson. This is our father and also Count of this region, Lord Horik," introduced one of the 2 young men standing behind. "It is my pleasure to be in your presence, Lord Horik," spoke Legolas and slightly bowed in respect. The other party was a noble in the end and had a rich territory from what he had seen while coming here, so being respectful towards such a big potential client was already given. Soon, an exchange of information started between both groups. "The job?" is hunting a group of legendary rank monsters that are wreaking havoc in our territory. Too many commoners and city guards have died or have been injured. Spoke the old man. How many? And exactly in which sectors? Asked Legolas with a curious gaze. 4 of them. In all 4 directions. Replied the exalted noble with an exasperated voice. Soon they told Legolas about what exactly happened. These legendary rank monsters were actually high-level dungeon monsters who escaped their dungeons somehow in other territories owned by other nobles. But instead of dealing with these monsters by themselves, all those lords who ruled those regions redirected their course and led them towards this territory owned by the human noble. This doesn't sound right. It's as if they're targeting your region intentionally. Spoke Legolas with a thoughtful expression. Ah, you're a smart one. This is indeed the case. They're from the rival noble factions. I wouldn't go into details for your own good. Just know that it is our misfortune to be surrounded by people of the rival faction. Revealed the old man. This has happened for the 3rd year in a row. The last 2 years took a toll on our treasury and we lost too many soldiers. That's why we're hiring outsiders for help this time. Iterated the old man. So will you accept this commission? Asked the nobleman, his hoarse voice resounding in the room. Of course. But before that, we need to discuss something very important. Responded Legolas. What? The elf guild leader then revealed a shameless grin and made a demand as this was the best time for haggling. The payment. Legolas suddenly decided to discuss the payment for the job in front of the client after accepting it. However, this tone was unclear about what exactly he meant by his previous words. However, the 2 sons of the exalted noble named Lord Horik revealed a gloomy and hateful expressions, because they understood that Legolas was going to rip them off because of their precarious situation. Are you trying to raise the price? Asked the son who stood on the right of Count Horik. Humph. Why am I not surprised? People in your profession always demand more than they deserve based on the situation. I think we made a mistake calling you here, said the son on the left as he openly revealed his grievance. Shoo! Silence. Let him speak. Spoke Count Horik as he raised his right hand in the air and signaled his sons to shut up. Please don't be too quick to judge us, young lords. Based on standard rates and the severity of the job, we should be asking you for 60 million Idikar. But since we take half payment in SS rank cores, it should cost you only 30 million. The rest, you can pay easily in cores given how vast and flourishing your territory is even with lacking funds and damage caused by those monsters. Isn't that why you came to hire us instead of going to some other guilds? Iterated Khan confidently. The expression of all 3 men changed the very next second. Because this was nothing but the truth. Are you implying that we can't pay you? Asked one of the sons. No, it's just how I do business. Let's make some alterations in the payment method instead. He said and looked at the old noble in his eyes. Instead of paying us in half with Idikar, we'll take only the SS rank cores. As for the other half, I want something else in return, replied Legolas, his gaze firm and his countenance that of someone with upper in this deal. Once the monsters are dead, I want all 4 of their cores. He proposed in a loud voice. What? Why do you want that? Asked Count Horik in a hoarse tone. Even if you sell them in the market, they can fetch you 20 million at best. But I'd let go of the extra 10 in good faith if you give me the cores instead of money. Responded the elf leader. Think about it. It saves you money. Saves the lives of your soldiers and also the ammunition you would need to kill them by your own means. This is a complete win-win situation for your side, said the elf as he presented the most appealing offer to the clients. Khan had Ranob's core already. They didn't leave it for anything after killing the 3rd stage Saint Summoner. Because last time when he had Saint cores, he had used all the cores to create new subordinates for Cassandra's safety. On the other end, his body had yet to absorb Axel's divine key completely, and Khan expected to receive another breakthrough in the upcoming months. Ranob's core was something he wanted to boost his levels once he became a 3rd stage saint. As for Rathnar's core, Khan couldn't even absorb it unless he became a 4th stage saint first. Thus, arranging for greater quality resources was the top priority. As for the other 4 legendary rank cores, why did he desire them and suddenly changed the terms of their deal on the spot? Because currently, many of his generals were still stuck at their levels. Only Ronan didn't need cores because he still had the souls of Hero's party members and Axel's soul too. His abilities allowed him to use them as a source to level up. But he too would need some time to see tremendous growth. This time, Khan decided to not go for the bodies. Khan himself already had too many abilities and he only used the most powerful and handful of them. Even looting the corpses to create new subordinates was extremely risky. So he had no interest in new ones unless the monsters were mythical rank beings who naturally had plenty of legendary rank skills. Thus he made the proposition of the cores only. Also, Khan's subordinates were one of the main reasons why he was able to kill Axel and Hero's party in the first place. Thus, investing and making arrangements to rise the rank of his subordinates was also a main priority for Khan in the long run. As for the money, Khan already had $500 million. This was enough to run the guild for many years unless he expanded the guild to greater numbers and territories. On the surface, he was losing a lot in this sort of transaction. But in reality, he would be the biggest winner. After spending a dozen minutes discussing among themselves, the Count and his sons came back to Khan. "We accept this deal. Let's sign on it first," spoke Count Horik. They had already called an employee of the Mercenary Association to facilitate the contract. This individual was actually an underling of Logan Varger, Khan's biggest ally in that department. Finally, both sides shook hands on the deal. "Who is going to do the work then?" asked one of the sons. Just then, a white-haired, bare-chested man with 2 katanas who stood behind Legolas walked forth. Without standing at the ceremony, he revealed his aura of a third-stage saint being. "I'd like you to meet my right-hand man," introduced the elf proudly and revealed the person who was going to finish the job by himself, Raiden Hrodvitson. One warship arrived at the northern end of this exalted noble's territory. A region that was currently devastated as a legendary rank monster was inhibiting it. This was the border between 2 separate regions, and the monster had entered through this side of the territory and already destroyed a few towns and killed thousands of citizens. As the warships were heading towards the site of the battle, Legolas and Ronan saw too many remains of destroyed ships, troops and corpses that were beyond recognition. Legolas then turned his head to the right and talked with the Count and his sons with a grim voice. "Leading 4 different legendary monsters isn't easy, especially not for weak force and thousands of soldiers." He iterated. "What do you mean?" asked Count Horik. "Leading a legendary rank monster to the direction of your region can't be done just by attacking them. Because normally, any legendary rank monster would most likely retaliate and kill the armies of their attackers. Once enraged, they'd go on a rampage and might as well even destroy their territories out of rage." He explained. "So you mean this is the work of an external force? Of only one individual at that?" asked one of the sons. "Yes, if my assumption is correct. Then all these 4 nobles surrounding either have at least a third-stage saint on their beck and call, or rather, they hired people like us," spoke Legolas without restraint. His reasoning was sound because he had hunted plenty of legendary rank monsters himself. "Don't be so cryptic. Are you saying that it's the same person?" asked Count Horik hurriedly. "Maybe or maybe not. But one thing is sure. It's an enemy you can't fight on your own." The warship stopped 15 kilometers away and landed in a grassland. "From here on, it's all on you. If your people die or something bad happens, it's not our responsibility," said Horik in an authoritative tone. "Perks of the job. No need to worry. We won't be asking for any compensation," said Legolas and turned to Raiden. "Make it quick. We have to return to the guild by night," said the elf. Raiden's figure flickered and he disappeared from the spot. The noble clients couldn't even see an afterimage or where he went. In just 5 minutes, Raiden aka Omega appeared a few hundred meters above the ground and sensed a mighty and dreary existence in front of him. GRRRGRGGG. A grunting noise resounded in the surrounding 2 kilometers of the region, as a massive 100-meter-tall body woke up from its sleep as soon as it sensed an enemy who suddenly appeared in the sky out of nowhere. Roar! An ear-deafening battle cry resounded in the atmosphere as a massive green body stood up. This was the first time Raiden and Legolas, who was seeing the scene through the former's eyes, had seen it in their lives. This monstrous creature had no eyes, but every part of its body was filled with vines and yellowish liquid dropped from their ends. Sizzle! Sizzle! Everywhere the liquid dropped, the ground sizzled as if it was some sort of toxic venom that could even melt metal easily. System, what monster is this? Queried Khan. The species in front of the subordinate Omega is named Salvikan, a boss-level monster only found in high-tier dungeons. Reported the system calmly. After the battle cry, Raiden then unsheathed Raijin and took an offensive stance in the air. Just then, Khan's command rang in his head. Commence the hunt. Omega aka Raiden hovered quietly in the air as he faced Salvikan, one of the 4 legendary rank monsters that haunted this territory of their client. The green and gooey monster that was 100 meters tall and had hundreds of vines that dropped yellow liquid from their pointy edges took an offensive stance as soon as it sensed Omega in its domain. Sizzle! Sizzle! The ground sizzled as the drops of toxin burned everything it touched. Khan as Legolas was seeing this monster through Omega's eyes using the hive mind skill and then queried its weaknesses to the system. After the system informed about this legendary rank creature's weaknesses and shortcomings, Khan relayed the information to Omega. I see. I'll do as you say, Master, responded Omega. Till now, he had been hiding his levels from the monster so it wouldn't run away instead of fighting him. Now that Khan told him how to get rid of it, Omega decided to reveal his full power. Shing! Boom! A massive pillar of silver aura erupted and Omega quickly equipped the moonlight armor. Crackle! Crackle! Blue flashes of lightning ran across Raijin's blade as Omega pointed the pointy edge towards Salvikan. This shall be your grave, he announced and released the bloodlust skill. Roar! After detecting that Omega was a stronger opponent, the Salvikan bellowed, its loud war cry trembling the ground and trees in the surrounding alike. Stab! Stab! It stabbed hundreds of its vines in the ground and pulled out a big chunk of soil and debris, covering them in its yellow toxin that could even melt iron instantly. Swoop! Swoop! It rotated its body haphazardly and created momentum in a circular motion, while the toxin-coated debris also gained speed because of it. Swoosh! Swoosh! And quickly, the Salvikan flung hundreds of the toxin debris at Omega, who floated in the air like shooting bullets at him. Dash! Dash! Omega's figure started flickering as he activated Quicksilver skill, leaving only afterimages behind as he dodged a volley of hundreds of toxin attacks. So that's how it destroyed the armies sent by the Count. The speed and accuracy of those toxin bullets are too terrifying. Even a first-stage saint can't dodge them easily without getting hit. Flying ships and soldiers were easy targets for the Salvikan, like turtles facing machine gun turrets in a battle, thought Khan, who was witnessing it from afar. Just then, he looked at Scorpion aka Ronin, who now had green hair and the yellow attire of assassins. He gave him a command and the commander disappeared from the spot, heading towards a particular location. Slash! Omega activated the Mirage Blade skill and created over 900 elemental katanas, each being 5 meters long. Soon, these Mirage Blades started attacking and countering the bullets hurled in his direction, some of them also making a protective shield that was bearing the brunt of all the attacks while defending him. Then he used Sword Emperor skill to summon even more aura blades made from his saint pressure. But this time, all the blades were of the lightning element. Crackle! Crackle! Let's try this. He spoke to himself and started merging all the newly summoned blades made of world energy, and soon, a 100-meter-long blue katana which had volatile and shining lightning running amok. Omega quickly put Raijin back in its sheath and took the Iajutsu stance of a samurai as he half-squatted and tightened his grip on the hilt. His eyes closed and his mind became extremely focused on the opponent ahead. At this moment, his senses discarded all the attacks and barrage of bullets shot at him, his mind trying to sense the existence of the Salvikan as if it was a moving target. Roar! The enemy monster ripped out a massive boulder from the ground and threw it at the elemental shield made by Omega. However, the very next second, the massive boulder stopped midair as Omega quickly activated the gravity domain. Using repulsion skill, he threw away the boulder to the side while the hundreds of bullets were frozen in the air. He used upforce and downforce skills to clear the way and then activated attraction to pull the ginormous body of the green monster. If they were of the same level, Omega wouldn't be able to achieve this feat. Even the temporary shield made from Mirage blades would have shattered long ago if he wasn't stronger than the enemy. But the current Omega was at least 200 levels higher than the opponent. Shing! Clatter! The surrounding area froze as Omega activated gravity imprisonment, and the legendary rank monster quickly froze on the spot, unable to move a single vine or its arms. Crackle! Crackle! The 100-meter-long lightning katana behind him shone even brighter than before, releasing a dangerous and malevolent pressure. Omega's eyes suddenly opened and his blue iris flashed. He instantly activated Quick Draw skill and shouted, "Kaminari Sarashu! Slash!" In the next nanosecond, the massive and sharp katana followed his movement and slashed through Salvakin's neck. Boom! Rumble! Thunderous noises resounded in 5 kilometers radius as lightning katana cut through and struck the ground below, instantly causing earthquakes and shuddering the entire region as if the sky dropped a massive bolt of lightning as a form of divine punishment. Crack! Shatter! Hundreds of crevices formed on the ground and most of the soil and stones turned into small granules because of the destructive lightning attack. Swoosh! Omega appeared behind the massive monster's figure and slowly started sheathing his katana in the scabbard on his waist. Clink! The moment he completely sheathed Raijin. Thud! The Salviken had its green glowing eyes wide open in disbelief as it finally realized that its head was cut off while it even failed to move a muscle. Thud! The 10-meter-tall massive head lost the light in its eyes, while the 20-meter-wide massive figure of the legendary rank monster dropped on the ground, completely lifeless. Omega unsummoned the Moonlight Armor. The armor greatly rose his speed and coupled with the gravity law skills, he killed this terrifying creature that could kill 100,000 soldiers and even destroy warships easily from afar in just 5 minutes. Good. I have finally created my own attack skill, spoke Omega, feeling joyous for successfully performing his new skill for the first time in a battle. Now then, where is it? On the other side, Legolas and the troops of the Count were waiting. Thud! Suddenly, the head of Salvikin dropped from the sky. It was as big as a mansion, so it instantly shook the open grounds of the grasslands, scaring off the exalted noble and his forces. Raiden then appeared beside Legolas and nodded. "It's done, guild leader," spoke the dual-sword samurai and looked at the noblemen who had their eyes full of disbelief. The group was bewildered because this battle was finished way too quickly and Omega hadn't even suffered an injury. How did you not get injured? Our forces had too many casualties facing it," spoke Count Horik with a bewildered expression. "It cannot hit you if you're too fast." "Now then," responded Omega with a stern gaze as he asked, "where's my next target?"